Hey guys, welcome back to Thema Thoughts. Grab your coffee, water, tea, whatever you're drinking, go and get that. Um, Welcome Ari to the membership. Mm. So, before we get into this topic, I want to say obviously welcome to everyone. Apologies. I'm going to give a brief little story right now. But before we do that, let me say the next 2 days will be probably the hardest 2 days in my entire career. Um, yeah, will be the hardest in my entire career. Um, and that is because part of the issues, and I shouldn't talk about this here, but I'm just going to do it very sort of briefly. In talking about um, taking vacation and making sure you're good, I usually don't take vacations. I don't know if you know this. Well, you probably don't. But in my career, I don't take vacations. I usually work. And I thought I did that to keep up with my academic life and my career and all of that. But the truth is, I have a process. And my process for work requires me to always, always, always kind of be ahead of everyone. And not ahead of everyone in terms of this boastful sort of way, but ahead of everyone in that I wake up earlier, I have my process in place for all the emails I'm about to get. And before I go to bed, I close out all my emails and all of that. What happened when I went for a week is unheard of. And being like 3,000 emails behind just messes up my entire process. And so the next week, this weekend, I will be working the entirety of the weekend to completely clear my inbox and catch up on everything because I have not had so many things slip through the cracks in my entire life. Not in school, not in my personal life, not in my career. Like it's just, it's ridiculous. Will I ever take another vacation? It's up in the air because I do not like to not be on top of everything. My secretary can't help, my paralegal can't help. No one can help. No, no, absolutely no one can help. So I've decided that that is what I'm going to do. We should consider that. Um, I will not tell the story. Well, I'm usually a really good negotiator, great negotiator. The reason I'm a good negotiator is, and this comes into the story I'm going to tell, is I will sit there with you, and if I think you're going to run out the clock so that you will pressure me into submission or conceding a point because you can sit there and wait, you're going to lose. And the reason is, as soon as I see that, I become very comfortable in my seat and I start negotiating. I start I start negotiating in a way that shows that I have a lot of time to, even if I don't, where I speak slower, I start asking a ton of questions, and I'm not about to allow you to run out the clock. And this I thought was great until I actually had a deadline. And so it's just everything is like heaping up. And I think my process always requires me to be fully organized, to always know what is happening at all the turns, right? Anticipate literally everything. And I have not been able to do that in the last 2 weeks after my vacation. And so I either need to update my process or I need to always stay ahead, which means even when I take vacation, to work on my vacation. So this is not great. These realizations aren't good things. And so, yeah, let's start this video. That's a personal update that I wanted to give, and that bleeds into why I have been late, not just for this live, but for previous lives. It's just a lot. It is a lot. And I'm usually on top of it. And I didn't know how much work I did. Like, I knew how much work I did, but I still underestimated the amount of work I did. And that's because I'm always on top of everything. I am always organized. I think my superpower, if anything, is I'm very organized and I know where everything is all at once, and I'm always prepared. I'm always prepared. It hasn't been the case. And so um, I've become regular. Anyway, let's start this video. Started. All right. So we are actually, I need you guys to watch something for a minute. I had a video that I wanted to show you guys before we start. Jordan Peterson made a video to the church, and you're not going to watch all of it. I'm not going to let you watch all of it, but I want you guys to watch a little bit of it because I think it's important. Yeah, I think it's important for various reasons, and I will explain what those reasons are later, and then we'll jump into this discussion.
Jordan Peterson released a video speaking to Christian churches and took them to task on a number of topics. Here are a few parts that stood out the most to me.
The Christian church is there to remind people, young men included, and perhaps even first and foremost, that they have a woman to find, a garden to walk in, a family to nurture, an ark to build, a land to conquer, a ladder to heaven to build.
And this.
Protestant, you're the worst at the moment. Catholic, Orthodox, invite young men, put up a billboard, say, young men are welcome here.
And this.
And here's a message to those young men skeptical about such things. What else do you have? You can say to yourself, the church does not express what I believe properly. Who cares what you believe?
Now, just so you guys know, I'm a fan of Jordan Peterson. If you go poke around my YouTube channel, you'll find multiple videos of me agreeing with him. But the deeper question is he accurate in his assessment of the church, specifically the Protestant arm of the church? Are his conclusions coming from a place of being informed, or are we seeing the Dunning-Kruger effect in full effect? We know Dr. Peterson is more than qualified to speak on the psychological and even give cultural commentary, but is he in his wheelhouse when it slides into the theological? In this video, I'm going to point out some areas that I definitely agree with him on, but I'm not going to pull any punches to the obvious elephant in the room that he seems to be ignoring.
Ruslan.
I want to speak into this topic as someone that's been in a local church for the last 20 years, the same local church, and who's led men's groups for a very long time. Small groups, men, also someone that's taken hundreds of couples through a program to help teach them financial literacy and get them out of debt. And I've had quite a bit of experience working with young men.
All right. So I showed that for a couple of reasons. One in particular is that you guys have told me to go to Ruslan and have him sort of be a teacher of sorts when it comes to the theological and specifically Christianity. And I did that. The reason I did that, particularly here, is because we started a bunch of mess. on Tuesday regarding the Bible and patriarchy, and whether or not the Bible promotes patriarchy, and whether that patriarchy is actually misogynistic, what it means. Can patriarchy be good? Is it bad? Is it what is promoted in the Bible? And he doesn't have a lot of time, so he did agree to be here, and so he's in the backstage, and I will add him now. And if you guys read the description, not only for Ruslan, but for you guys, when he leaves and you guys come up, I will be more of a student. I will not be a debater. I will turn off my quote unquote lawyer brain in an effort to learn as much as I can, asking questions. So, Ruslan, welcome.
Hey, man. Thank you so much for having me.
No,
I'm always excited to have these conversations with you.
I mean, thank you for deciding to come back. I'm very excited that you decided you would lend your time and explain some of this to us.
I'm going to do my best. I don't know if I'm going to be the perfect explainer of these very polarizing conversations you want to talk about, but I'll do my very best.
Well, is it polarizing? Do you think this is polarizing?
I think depending on the audience you're speaking to, it could definitely polarize. Absolutely. I think to my audience, probably not so much.
All right, let's jump right in. And I know I know you were really, really busy, so I really appreciate the time. Is Christianity patriarchal or misogynistic?
So I'm going to read your definition of patriarchal so that we have the same definitions, working definitions. So the way you described it in your DM is that, does the Bible place the man at the head of a family or tribe, or can you attempt to redefine patriarchy? Does the Bible place the man at the head of a family or tribe? That is the question in terms of the definition of patriarchy. Yes. Christianity, per Ephesians chapter 5, definitely places the man as the head. Is it misogynistic? I don't think so.
All right. What's the difference in your mind between it being patriarchal versus it being misogynistic?
Can you define, what do you mean when you say misogyny?
Misogyny comes with a sort of disdain for women. Now, I say disdain or dislike in this way because patriarchy can still put women at a lower rank or a different rank, depending on how you view it, without having a dislike for. And so where does the Bible come out on that?
That's great. Okay, great question. Okay, so I am what you would call a complementarian. That means that I believe that men and women are equal in value and their roles complement each other. And to unpack this idea, we'd have to go kind of into some generalities, which aren't always helpful, but they're generalities. They're the rule. They're not always the exception to the rule. A lot of times people want the exception to the rule instead of just kind of acknowledging it for what it is. And so some forms of Christianity or complementarianism can slide into a hierarchical position, which I don't think that's helpful, but I think a healthy complementarian view of the man and the woman and the different roles that we have, I think is ideal. And I would argue, and I could point you to some studies that are helpful for society and most optimal for most people. So I think what you're describing is more of a hierarchical view in a marriage, where like it's like a hierarchy, a king, and then like he has his like peasants. Like that's not, I don't believe in that. Like, and in terms of like disdain for women, like I love my wife. Like my wife's my best friend. We've been married 14 years. We've been together 18 years. I don't view my wife as inferior or dumb or stupid or unintelligent. I listen to her. I talk to her. And I she's very helpful in multiple ways. But I acknowledge that we're different, that we're wired different. We have different desires. We have different things that drive us, And so that's not just I would not say that's just a personality thing. I would say that's how God has wired men and women to be different.
All right. So if I'm hearing this and you're saying you're a complementarian and you're thinking about differences, not so much as in ranking, but just in the ability to help each other without one being better or less than the other. But if the man is the head, does that not also indicate that the others are in some ways beneath? Can you be the head with someone beside you without a hierarchy in that sense?
No. Yes and no. So man becomes the first among equals within the dynamics of a marriage, but that doesn't mean that he's superior. And as a Christian, we glean our example from complementarian theology from the Trinity. God the Father, God the Son, Holy Spirit, all equally God, distinct persons, different roles, right? And so it would be, let's say it this way. Are me and the president both human? We are. Are we both equal in being humans? We are. But he has a different role. It doesn't mean he's better than me. It just means his role and his responsibility is different than my responsibility. And so we have different roles, but he's not any more of a human than I am. And he's not any more, and I'm not inferior to him as an image bearer, as a person, but he has a different role, has a different authority within the context of being the leader of the free world. And so the same way God the Father, God the Son, Holy Spirit, they're not any less God, but the Father sends the Son comes, lives the life we couldn't live, dies the death we should have died, rises from the grave on the third day. Then the Holy Spirit comes and dwells our heart. Distinct persons, equal in essence, equal in all being God.
All right. I think, I mean, not an issue, but even in the sort of analogy drawn between humankind being different, but being valued as humans in the way we think of a janitor versus a president, there is a sort of distinctive treatment that comes with the position of presidency, which implies a kind of value, right? So while you are not necessarily better or less in your personhood, but the position that you can hold as president adds value in almost every department except your humanness, and for some people, your humanness. So to be excluded from leadership, you are saying is not necessarily indicative of you being less than as a woman.
Well, this goes back to our crux in America, where we tend to define ourselves by what we do for work. I would say the rest of the world doesn't view it like that. Like, I don't know if you've been to Paris, France. It's very unpopular or kind of rude to bring up what someone does for work because they aren't defined by what they do. I think in America, we find our worth and our value in a very consumeristic society by what we do for work, not who we are and what our passions are.
But even outside of sort of external validation, there is a kind of access, even if we never speak about the fact that this person is the president, that person is the president, and it implies a kind of access. So by virtue of being the president, there are top secret clearance, right? Like there are things that you can have access to outside the scope, like very different from what a janitor might have access to based on the role, and never being able to be the president and always being the janitor. I mean, I guess one could argue that, well, that's how it should work. It still doesn't mean you're better. It just means they're different roles. Is that where you would come out on that?
I would say, yeah. And I would say, I don't want the job of the president. And the standard I have for men is substantially higher than the standard I have for women. And we can get into that. I have very high standards for men, and I don't have the same expectations for women. I would say society has higher standards for men in some regards than women. And I would say women are wired different in some regards, you know?
I actually really want to get into that. So I am not a feminist. I've said this before, and it's not that I don't think men and women are equal, but I could not send a woman to war on the front lines to go fight where I could do that for a man. Is that kind of where you're coming from?
Yeah,
Or-
I mean, we've seen, you can look up videos of like women training with men in the military, you know, like, and how outlandish that is when you see a woman attempting to do the same physical labor. So that, and what you're saying is pragmatic, like that's actually fleshed out in war. I don't know any soldiers that are like, I want a woman with me on the front lines, right? Like usually that's not a thing. And so
Yeah.
we wouldn't say that's sexist or that's misogynistic. We would say, no, the women are built different. They have different strengths than men, and men have different, usually physical strengths. And we're speaking in generalities, right? Not every woman is weaker than every man, but generally speaking, women are not as strong as men. So therefore men make for better soldiers. And I think that's a fair conclusion that we can make.
All right. So let's actually, I feel like I'm going in two different directions, and I really want to get into the man-woman conversation. Like I really do, but I won't. Let's go to the Adam and Eve story, right?
Okay.
Were women punished more than men?
I don't think so. I think the Adam and Eve story is interesting. In the New Testament, it echoes that Eve was the one deceived, right? And it goes on to say that she will be saved through childbirth, which is a very interesting phrasing of language.
Yeah.
In the Genesis account, it says, you will desire to control your husband, but he will rule over you, right? So that's a very interesting dynamic in terms of their relationship. So I don't think so. I think the harsh part about the Adam and Eve story, and I'm not saying this is as a behalf as like the Christian doctrine, but many Christians have said that the woman was deceived. Adam knew what he was doing. So Adam rebelled. Like Adam knew, but was okay with it, while the woman was deceived by the serpent. So the curse of the man is thorns and thistles. You have to work, you have to do manual labor, and in the Genesis account, right? So there's a distinction of the curse, but I don't think one is better or worse than the other. I think they're both pretty brutal, in terms of the fall.
All right. This is actually quite interesting now. I disagree with you on that.
Okay.
And the reason I disagree is women in some ways are cursed to go through the labor of childbearing, right? I shouldn't say curse, but it sounds like a punishment. So I'm going to use the word curse. Correct me if you do not like the verbiage. That being said, the man has to go out and work, essentially, is what, right? But one seems to be a mandate where the other is a suggestion.
What do you mean? You think it's a suggestion that the man should work?
I wish men would have to work, but men can opt out of not working, whereas if humanity is to continue, the woman has to produce children, and not have to, like you can do what you want. But society can continue where the man doesn't work, where women have to work.
Yeah, so I think men have to work. I think the New Testament
echoes. Men should work.
Yeah,
they don't.
No, I think in order to be a man, if a man not work, he ought not eat. Right, like with the caveat of like you have a disability or some catastrophic event happens to you. If a man not work, like I don't know if we would classify him as a man.
And I mean, a man who cannot provide for his family, I don't know where this is from, is worse than an infidel.
Yep.
But the mandate is where a woman gets to choose if they want to have children or not want to have children. They ultimately, without science advancing, for the population, for humanity to continue, they have to. Whereas we've seen the existence of single mothers, for example, and the community still continues. Even if you want to say it's bad, it still continues. So when I say one is mandated and one is a kind of suggestion, and then in a world of inflation where both the men and women have to go out and work, it's looking to me like one person got the crappy end of the stick. Pardon my French.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you keep saying the word suggestion. I don't see it as a suggestion in Scripture. I think that you can still build your life in a way where one person can be the breadwinner. I know a lot of people don't believe that today. I would say they're wrong. I know a lot of people where the man is the breadwinner. Maybe I have selection bias because of my circle of friends. And so I think that is a reality that many folks are choosing to live their life in a way where they have single income families. And that's personally where I do speak to men, is regards to how to build your life in a way where you can allow the woman to stay home. And when she's, she wants to have kids, when she does have kids, if she chooses to.
So, I mean, I kind of appreciate your perspective in that, like, I think your opinion and your approach to the Bible as well, you are not a man fully. If you are capable of working, but you're not working, like you are not fulfilling your role as a man, right? As a provider.
You're not invited to play basketball. You're not invited to the cookout. You're not hanging with me and my friends if you don't know how to work. Like,
yes, which makes sense. I appreciate that. You're not hanging out with me either. But the fact still remained, it's not, even if it's a mandate, it is one that can be ignored.
I think if we want society to continue on a macro scale, if we want people to continue flourishing and thriving and civilization to go on, men, generally speaking, have to work. Women, generally speaking, have to produce children. That's the bare bones of any civilization. Men have to work. Women have to produce children. Does that mean every man will work? No. Does that mean every woman will produce a child? No. But if we want civilization to continue, that is a requirement for everyone to succeed.
Are you saying that society cannot continue if men decide not to work? Because a lot of, and maybe not on the macro scale, but a lot of communities are continuing, though struggling, where the men aren't even present to work. And so if the mandate or the punishment of men is to work and women are also working, it then seems to me that, well, women are punished twice.
Yeah, well,
right?
Childbirth can be ignored as well. So let's not act like women are incapable of delaying having children, which many are, and some don't even want children. So that is a reality as well. A lot of women are also delaying having children, delaying getting married, delaying starting family.
No. I mean, and that's fine. But if we're taking your for society to continue approach, for society to continue, women have to have children. For
Correct.
society to
and
continue,
men have to work. And men have to work. Because you're looking at the exception to the rule. You're looking at the exception to the rule. You're looking at communities where the man is not in the community for a plethora of reasons: bad laws, bad decisions, bad choices, lack of opportunity. However, if we're talking about what is the optimal environment to create children and to create and have functional adults that are going to contribute to society, you need a man and a woman in the same household. And you need them to have a healthy, stable marriage.
Your statement there, I completely agree with.
Okay.
But you use a word that was not included. It's optimal environment.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can eat ice cream and donuts every day and still live, but you're going to be diabetic and hanging on by a thread and barely able to function. You can do that. And men cannot work. And they can do that, and they're going to be terrible men, and women can avoid having kids, and like that. This is how it's going to play out, right?
Yeah.
So, like,
and that happens,
right?
Like there are people who do that. So, for society to continue, even in a crappy state, it is possible that the man does not engage in the way that a man is supposed to engage, as mandated by the Bible. But for society to continue, women have to have children. Like, there is no way in which our society continues where women do not reproduce. Like, if
to
women
maintain the birth rate, yes, women have to have children. But we're seeing the birth rate go down in places like Japan and South Korea, where they're not keeping up with their population, and that's creating serious issues for the elderly because there's not enough taxes and enough young people to care for them, right? So we've seen. So what you're describing is we've seen happen on both sides: men not being able to work and women not reproducing in South Korea and Japan, and it's a real issue they're dealing with right now without replenishing their own population.
Yeah, but we're talking in absolutes, where I can say if men stop working, absolutely, right? Populations can continue, where if women stop giving birth, populations cannot continue. And that's why I was prefacing it by saying one is, it seems like a mandate, it's punishment. On the other, it's like, well, you should do this if you want to be a good Christian man, but you don't have to. And in fact, even if you do, women are also working. And so you are, as a woman, both having children and also coming together with men and having two income household, which I'm not against. It just feels like there is a double punishment going on.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I think we're going to disagree on the framing. Like I don't see that as a situation. You're technically correct. Men can sit around, do nothing, eat Cheetos, keep reproducing with women, and I guess society can go on. But I don't want to be a part of that society. I think it's going to be a trash society. I think it's going to be unhelpful. You know what I mean? And so, like, yes, technically what you're saying is true, and women can, raise the kids and work, pay for the daycare. That could work. But like, is that what we want as a culture? Is that what we want as a society? Right. So sure, like, and you're going to tie, tying that into to the passage in Genesis. Yeah, I mean, I guess technically what you're saying is correct, but I think we've seen that thought experiment play out, and it's seldom ideal.
Yeah, it's really crappy. So I want to go back to sort of God's mandate for men and women. How do you, let me read this. Why does Adam double punish? Even he was the head of Eve and clearly wasn't doing his job. Eve was deceived by the devil on his watch. I think Ruslan would actually agree with you, saying I think Ruslan would put the burden on the man to make sure everything is together.
I would, and I would say, they just did a study recently where they found out that 56% of working women, if given the option to stay home and raise kids, would choose to raise kids. So 56% of women with kids 18 years old would prefer to have stayed home and raised their kids. Now, I would love to see that study for kids under 10, kids under 5, and I bet you those numbers would scale way up. So how do we get there, right? If 56% of women with kids 18 are saying, hey, I would have preferred to stay home and raise my kids, right? So then, okay, so what about kids 10, under 5? How do we get to that place? I don't think we get to that place by telling men not working. I think we get to that place by men learning to be better workers and learning to create better value for their situations and their spouses and their families. I think that's how we get there. So this is what I mean by I hold men to a higher standard.
When you think when we talk about the mandate, and I think earlier you talked about this and we skipped to do another discussion. So let's go back to that. When you talked about the mandate of God to the man and to the woman, how do you see that? Can you kind of explain their roles as a complementarian? You said, can you explain kind of the roles of men and women?
I think it would depend on the season that the man and the women are in. So I think there's different seasons for different parts of life, where you live, who you live with, what are you doing in the current season, right? And so early on in our marriage, my wife, I was actually in school. My wife worked 2 jobs. I worked part-time. Later on, we both worked. And then when we went to have kids, she stayed home and has been home ever since. And now as the kids are getting, well, we have a 1-year-old now. She works like a couple hours a week at the church, and she might do some like freelance design work working from home. So I think it would depend on the season that 2 people are in. I don't think we want to take my season that now I'm in my 30s, I'm doing really well, and prescribe that as an absolute for a young man who's 25, right? I think it would depend on the season that someone is in. But I would say, generally speaking, if we're driving towards creating optimal environments to have marriages that survive and thrive, to have kids that are happy and healthy, I think you would get to a place where, hey, the woman can stay home when the kids are little, and the man goes out and leaves the cave and kills something and drag it home for the tribe to eat. That I would say is the optimal. And I think scripture echoes that. I think scripture reflects that. I think in our modern day context and culture, it could be different. It could be difficult because we live in such a different times than when the scriptures were written in. A lot of these folks were living together. They were farming. They were, it was different lifestyle. Whereas today, I think it's a little bit different. So we can't take everything one for one and make it an absolute application in a literal sense from the scripture. But I think on the macro scale, I would say that would be the prescription.
Yeah. By the way, I know you have a time crunch, so at any point, just let me know.
Okay.
When you.
Yeah, I got about 10, 15 minutes.
All right. Welcome, Afro Butterfly. I'm trying to figure out if I want to go to Lilith now, or I'll save that for some other time. Let me ask this then. Regarding Lilith. Well, I want to do submission. I'm trying to figure out how to get this down into 10 minutes. What are your views on submission?
My views on submission in which context? Like, I think we all have to submit to someone.
True. The biblical sense when it comes to a woman's and a man's role.
I think Ephesians 5, the man is the head of the wife as Christ is the head of the church. And I think there is a mandate there to submit. I think there's also, it talks about submitting to each other as well in that same passage. And so I think if someone is a great leader, you don't have to remind them that they're a great leader. You don't have to. I don't think I've ever told my wife in 14 years of marriage, you need to submit to me, woman, because that's just, you're a bad leader if you got to say that. You're a bad husband if you got to say that, in my opinion. I think there's been a couple of situations, I honestly can't think of them right now, where we've been at odds over something and I kind of have like the final say. But even in those situations, it's never a Ephesians 5, woman, you need to do X, Y, and Z. But I think generally speaking, the man is the head of the family. He leads.
And with that leadership comes responsibility to provide and protect. Do you think, and I'm obviously this is a heterosexual Christian relationship, should a woman submit to a man who cannot provide and protect them? Provide for them and protect them?
That's a great question, man. I don't know. I don't know. I think it would depend on the situation. My advice would be, don't get in a situation with a man that can't provide and protect you. And I would add one more thing, and be the priest of your home. I would add a layer to that. The man that's self-controlled, a man that knows how to delay gratification, a man that's not flirting with your friends, right? Like don't get in a situation. So I would say let's work on the preventative side first. Then I would say, okay, now if you're in this situation,
all right, that's where we're going to go.
You're married to someone, or you're in a, you're married to someone and they're not providing. Why are they not providing? Like, are they sick? Are they disabled? Are they going through a tough season? Are they depressed? Right? Because there's also that side of it. So I think it would depend on like what we mean with regard specifically to submit. And then I would say, and what are the reasonings around it? Generally speaking, I would say, hey, lady, if a man can't be the priest, the provider, and the protector of your home, if he at least doesn't have the potential to become that within a foreseeable future, I would say run. And yeah. I do think it's easier for women to submit to a priest, provider, protector. I think most women would agree. If the man could be the breadwinner, and I could work or I could not work. I could work part-time or I cannot work part-time. I could go pursue a career. I cannot pursue a career. I could go pursue a career, but I know when I have kids, I can be a mother and be home. I think most women generally, I don't mean to speak on behalf of women, but I think most women generally are more okay with submitting to something like that.
But so you said it depends ish, but isn't it biblical to only submit to those who can provide, protect, and be the sort of priest? Because if the Bible says you're worse than an infidel, and I keep quoting this and I don't know exactly where it's from, so correct me if it's not in there. If you're worse than an infidel, if you cannot provide for your family, should someone submit to that? Like, for my sort of edification.
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. And again, we'd have to define on what you mean submit in that context, because now there are certain men who can lead and provide in different ways, maybe not financially, and I think it becomes naturally difficult to submit. I'll give you a real example, and the women are going to hate me for this. It is very difficult for women to submit to stay-at-home dads. It's very difficult for a woman to if she's the breadwinner, it is very difficult for a woman to submit to a stay-at-home dad, right?
Yeah.
Should she leave him? No, right? Like if she wants him to be the provider and it's not an egalitarian situation and she wants it to change, should she encourage him? Yes. You know, so I think that would be the process.
Is
So
a stay-at-home father in accordance with the Bible? It
Mhm.
is a man who is at home and providing in that way. The more domestic version of a relationship, taking on that role.
Yeah.
Is that in alignment with Scripture?
That's a great question. I don't think so. With the caveat that I got friends that are stay-at-home dads, and I don't want them to see this and be mad at me for saying that. But no, I don't think so. I don't think so. And again, there's seasons. One of my close friends was a stay-at-home dad, and his wife was a school teacher. And for the first, I want to say, he was like a cab driver. He was trying to figure out, and then he pivoted. And he just kind of built his business at nights while he stayed home with the kids. His wife was a school teacher, and slowly shifted over, and she was able to, stay home. And then now they work together, and I think they're doing 750K, as a business, right? And so he started as a stay-at-home dad and slowly shift over, and I tell you what, it became a lot easier for her to submit. And she encouraged him, right? But it became substantially easier for her to submit and for him to feel comfortable leading in a way that, like, hey, like, there's certain things that, like, we got to be on the same accord about. There's certain expectations I have, right, that we have to be on the same accord about. And so that was difficult. It was very difficult for them, but they moved the needle over, and now they're in a great spot where they're making an incredible amount of money. She works with him, and she has a lot of skills, and she's extremely talented. So I would say that there are times, but that was someone that also helped and propelled the man forward, right? Which I think sometimes we can leave out, like, the complementarian side of things. Like, men oftentimes need to be encouraged if they come from what I come from, like, where you come from poverty and you don't have your dad in your life, and you've never seen a breadwinner scenario. You've never seen a woman stay home and the husband lead and then still be present, still be a fun dad, not be stressed. Like, if you've never seen that, that could be tough just to believe that that's even possible. So I think that's where the role of the woman could come in, because there's nothing like your woman having faith in you and believing that, like, you can become this person, right? And so, like, in the interim, if that's what we're working towards, should she submit to him? Again, I would like, let's define what you mean by submission and what I mean by submission.
Actually, so Ruslan, can you define what submission looks like in the Christian household? Can you define submission?
Yeah, I would say submission looks something similar to the husband is going to have the trump card at the end of if there's a disagreement. I'll give you an example. Early on in my marriage, my wife I was at a church that I've been at, the same church, our home church, 20 years, been at the same church. My wife was going to a different church, the same church she was going to before we got married, right? Early on in my marriage, I made it clear that I would like us to be at the same church, right? And she wanted to remain at her church, right? And I didn't just throw this in her face and say, woman, you need to come to my church. That's not how because we could create a caricature of how this plays out. So what did I do? I went and prayed about it, right? I sought counsel about it. And then all of a sudden she came over and was like, okay, you're right. Right. So I think there's situations like that where, hey, this is where I'm leading us spiritually, and this is where I'd like to see us go. This is what I think. I'll give you recent examples. There's been job opportunities for my wife since she's had kids, and I've been like, yeah, no, I don't think that's a good idea for you right now. I think we can earn more by you being focused on the things in the home and let me do this. And if you want to help me with this, I prefer you help me with this. And she's stepped up, and she does all of our bookkeepings now, and she's technically on payroll and gets a check from us. You know what I mean? I'll give you another example. Separate checking account. When we initially got married, she wanted to have this like separate checking account. We're going to go half and half on the rent, and we sat down with a pastor, and he was like, no, that's a terrible idea. You guys having separate checking accounts is a recipe for divorce. Don't do it. And I was like, yeah, I didn't know that was your expectations. I didn't know that's what you wanted. Right. And now we have joint checking accounts. She has access to all the funds, and we have one personal account. We have a business account, and so those are just a couple of like examples that I'm just like kind of throwing out there.
Hurry up and eat that. Submitting sounds like giving him the opportunity to be the only one making money so he can have that control over her. Sounds risky. How do you respond to that? And I'll add that I've sensed a lot of anxiety among women because of sort of how society is operating now, and particularly in certain communities where there is not a lot of trust in men being faithful once they have power in some ways in this way and leadership capacity.
Mhm.
How what do you say to women like that from a Christian man's perspective? How should women navigate these thoughts?
I think it's who are you exposing yourself to, and who are the men that you are seeing, right? So I think if your if your view of men is like these soft men that don't earn no money and are just kind of coasting, well, yeah, like I would feel a way about that as well. Like I would feel, and someone said submission is 50-50. Submission is not 50-50. Submission is 100-100. We're here and we're committed and we're giving 100% each, and so yeah, and so we could say like 50-50. It's not 50-50. And again, a lot of this is like, who are you trying to date? Like a lot of you guys it sounds like y'all want to date these guys who are just not really the best guys. Like who are we talking about? And so I don't know.
I mean, there is a sort of answer to that, but it requires bringing race into it, which I'm refusing to do intentionally right now. Um, but so you are saying find the best man for the job. Like, don't just go and pick a random person. Find the best man for the job. I'm assuming you would agree with having standards, boundaries, and expectations in terms of the way you decide to go date other people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one, how are you meeting people? What is that metric? Where's your pool of people coming from? Two, I would say, what is the main thing driving you to be with someone? Is it strictly chemistry and like the innate desire to, oh, I could recreate with this individual, right? Like, is it driven strictly by that, or are you looking for other virtues in other regards? I'm not saying you shouldn't be attracted to the person, but if that's the only thing driving you is like this
Hmm.
person is attractive, that's the main thing you care about. I would say, I don't know, I would think about that, right? Because there's a lot of women that I was attracted to before I met my wife that I was like, yeah, sometimes the prettiest girls be the craziest girls. And I would say that's the truth for guys. Sometimes the most attractive dudes got a lot of narcissism, got a lot of ego. And so like, what are you driving? What's driving you to want to potentially date this person? And also like understanding that like beauty can be refined, right? Like my wife is more attracted to me post fitness glow up, post getting to 11% body fat. Oh, let me feel on your abs, right? Like she's more
Yeah.
attracted to me now, 12, 14 years into our marriage, than she was initially when I was kind of a sloppy beta guy.
Yeah.
So I think that could be adjusted. Same thing. A lot of our attraction in terms of Western standards is for men is shoulder, shoulder hip ratio, jawline, symmetrical face. With women, it's the same thing. It's not super complicated. And so almost anyone can make themselves more attractive by just adjusting their fitness and their health, And
Yeah.
so I would say that's not the primary thing that's my wife just had a baby a year ago. She was 165 pounds. She's 5'5". She's 120 pounds now. I'm pretty into her being lean and petite and 120 pounds. I'm chasing her around the house, right? That doesn't mean that I didn't love her when she was carrying our child. I was still attracted to her. But you see how these things could be adjusted. So that would be the question is like, where are you looking for people, and are you doing your due diligence in vetting them? Are you thinking in like logically with values, morals, and standards? Are you keeping healthy boundaries? Are you looking out for the red flags? I think if we're doing those things, you can increase the chances and decrease the risk of marrying a deadbeat, that like is one way, but then he's going to all of a sudden become a scumbag after y'all get married. I think you could decrease that. We can mitigate risk. We can't avoid risk.
Yeah, and in mitigating risk, because I would have pushed back on vetting, but I like the framing of mitigating risk. I think that is like that's a good place to be. Um, you're saying, and I actually appreciate this, it's not just someone's physical attribute. Like, think about what they have to contribute. Do they meet your standards and all of that stuff? And I mean, I've never heard it articulated on this channel like that. Most men who come up here don't actually talk about women having standards for men. So that's quite interesting. I really appreciate that perspective.
So this is an interesting question. What's your opinion on a time frame that he would want his sister to allow a man's potential to manifest? How long to wait to him display, provide, protect, and preach? That's a great question. Okay, so my sister's a lawyer. She's crushing it, you know, and the tension she's feeling in a very real way is like, yo, I'm dating this lawyer and I want to start a family soon, but we've been engaged and he isn't ready to marry yet because he wants to travel and he took a job in Guam and he's kind of moving around, right? So he has the provider side, he has the protector side. I mean, the priest side, I think he's working on, you know, and so like, how long would I expect her? I don't know. I mean, that's some of her decision, but I know she wants a family. I know she's going to probably want to stay home with her kids when they're little, even though she's a lawyer. So I think that's a real reality. Go ahead if you want to jump into your next question or read this question.
Submission doesn't mean the woman don't have to say or voice.
Yep.
She just trusts the man's leadership.
Yep.
She's just as vital as the man. It's just the order of things. God, man, woman, child. I mean, all right.
So
But
why is this so hard for, like, I don't understand why this is, like, how is this misogynistic or how is this like bad? Like, this is the part that I don't quite understand, right? Like, because what's the alternative? Have a matriarchal society where women run the show? Like I don't think egalitarian society.
Okay, there. I think a lot of women would say an egalitarian society, but actually most women on this channel, and I know this for a fact, aren't opposed to patriarchy, right? Okay. Which actually surprised me. I think what is happening is that the kinds of men they run into aren't leaders in this way, and that has
respect.
Yeah, and so it's very difficult for women to hear, oh, just choose a better man, when men after men after men after men that they meet just aren't leaders, and they're demanding respect, they're demanding submission, they're demanding all these things that you said you would never verbally demand, but they're verbally demanding these things, and they cannot live up to their end of the bargain in terms of being providers and protectors, but requiring. And so I think
that's an interesting dynamic. So my pushback would be, where are they going to meet these men? That would be where I would ask, because I hear women say this in my comment section. I hear women say this in my comment section, and CNN just put out a poll that said 45% of working women between the ages of 25 to 45 will be single by the age 2030. And I had women say, well, you don't understand. I can't find a good man. And I said, DM me. And all of a sudden I'm playing matchmaker behind the scenes, because I know a lot of good men out here that love God, that own homes, right? And they're saying the same thing about women. So it's like, are we just missing each other? Are we like, you know, because if again, selection bias, where are you looking for these? How many of these women are in a solid biblical local church? How many of these women are like developing themselves spiritually, right? That would be my question, is like,
no, I mean, and fair enough, that I think the issue is one that requires a cultural conversation that I am not willing to have yet, right? There are specific groups of men that are stereotyped a certain way. And those stereotypes are sometimes predicated on statistics that we kind of generally ignore. And I think that in terms of the dating market, there's a lot of women who are unwilling to open their options in terms of men, right? And
let's just cut to the chase. Black women who want black men.
Fear, yeah.
Okay, DM me on Instagram. I got a lot of amazing, godly black friends who are single that I could introduce you guys to. I've done streams with them. I've highlighted their YouTube channels. They're out there. Again, I don't know. Again, you know,
Look,
where is this coming from? Because not everybody is on the fresh and fit bandwagon. Not everybody's out here red pilled on some like toxicity, right? Like there's a lot of guys out there. I would encourage you guys, and you guys might think this guy's terrible. Look at a lot of the men that Hafiz is working with. You know, like they're red pill adjacent, but he's working with some men that he's developing black men that are solid men. Not all of them. I'm not endorsing. Don't miss me with it. That's not an endorsement of everything he's ever said. But I'm saying there are these pockets out there, and I know I have access to quite a few. Specifically, DM me.
Well, all right. If they DM you and they hook up and they come, the women come back with stories, please know that I will put these stories front and center.
Fair enough. I'm just saying there's women there's good women out there, there's good men out there. This is what I don't want to do, because some of this dialogue, because you know, the inverse is happening, right? Like the inverse is happening on the red pill side of things. I'm about to debate Rollo what is his name? Tomasi. He wrote The Rational Male. I'm about to debate him on the Valuetainment Money channel about some of this stuff. And the same stuff that's being said here about black men, or where are these men, is the same stuff they're saying about women who have traditional values. It's not in your interest because you're going to marry some modern, right? And it's literally like you have two sides saying like demeaning things about each other, right? And then like ignoring that we could actually meet in the middle, lose some of the toxicity, and come together and develop healthy relationships.
I think it's an unfair, I didn't know we would be talking about this, but I do think it's an unfair sort of equivalency being drawn, though. And the only reason I started talking about the sort of manosphere at all is because of the ways in which they completely bastardize research. Like
it's bad. That's the opening thing we're opening with in our debate. It's the research is terrible. They're awful at developing research, for sure.
But on the BWE side, I mean, you can be upset with their tone, upset with their language, upset with all of that, but at least their research is solid.
And I'm going to be needing some of that research, because I need some good peer-reviewed research, because that's the first thing that, you know, we're going to be talking about. And so just know, like, I'm not on the fresh and fit energy. That's not what time I'm on. I'm going to debate them, because I think I would love to debate Myron. I'm going to debate Rollo, who's always on fresh and fit, who's I just think is terrible with some of his conclusions about women. But like, if all the content is like women aren't good, women are bad, they're hypergamous, and then the flip side is like, well, men ain't providing, men ain't men ain't right. It's just like, oh man, this is brutal, because we're talking past each other.
I mean, this is a perfect example, right? So if we're thinking about those two statements, right? One of those is provable. One is provable by looking at the median income for the Black community. And you know that a one income household is not feasible for the average Black man in America. Like, it's just not, with $45,000 a year, right? So like, one is actually provable, but the other is just sort of nonsense. Not fully, but mostly. But we don't have to get into that. I know you have to leave, and
hold on. Let me just say this. I hear you, and I don't want to get into the minutia of the statistics, right? My heart is this. In the same way, not everyone is naturally athletic. We can all do things to become more athletic. And so instead of me dunking on women and telling women that they're whatever, I don't really care to have that conversation. You know, I'll keep it a buck where I think there's problematic areas. My desire is to say, okay, great. There are men who are overweight. I get it. Hey, if you eat in a caloric deficit, you go do compound training and strength train, and you get the right amount of protein, generally speaking, men can improve their physical stature. And I would say in the same way, we could apply that to finances. Yes, most men are not doing well financially, just like most men are not fit, just like a lot of people are fat and obese. However, that doesn't mean that we can't make changes both with our decisions, with our environment, with our diet, to move the needle and tip the scales in our favor. And so that's what I'm trying to provide for men, is to say, and I'm not saying this in an abstract sense, like we've seen multiple men who were school teachers lose their job, call me, we set up a business plan that I didn't invest in, I didn't do anything, and then they're running a 7-figure business, you know, speaking to their community and doing incredible work. Like I can give you examples of that. Like it is possible. Is it normal? Is it the average? No, it's not normal. It's not the average. But we have to do abnormal things sometimes.
That should be the norm. Like I am encouraged by the idea that there are men helping other men to be better men. Like the conversation, like, again, this is why I'm not a feminist. I could not care less about like what women are saying in terms of, oh, you're not a provider, you're not a protector. Like what I would care about is if men were saying, how do we be better at this capitalistic world if we're going to engage? How can we provide for a family, protect for a family, build communities?
Yes.
How can we do that? And if the mantle of leadership biblically is placed on the man, then you need to be leading. You cannot blame anyone else for the community failing. It is incumbent on you to uplift your community and build in your community. So
100%.
I mean,
100%. So let's just do a quick poll before I get out of here. Ladies, if you meet a man and he is already a provider, a protector, and the priest of your home, and you would be willing to submit to that, drop a 1 in the chat right now. And if you're still like, F that, I don't want that, then drop a 2. I'm curious. Let's do that. Because I think me and you are saying the same thing, believe it or not. I think we're saying, hey, let's as men take responsibility. And the more we do that, I'm seeing a lot of 1s. I'm seeing a lot of 1s, right? So then the question becomes, I'm seeing a couple 2s, to be fair. The question becomes is, how do we empower men to become these types of men? That's the question. I think part of it is belief in themselves, which you believe will determine how you behave. Part of it is access to resource and information. Part of it is access to mentors. Part of it is just community, right? But if most women here are saying, hey, yeah, I would submit, however we're going to define submit, right? Not having separate bank accounts, not going to separate churches, not going out with my ladies every Friday and Saturday night to the club, because that's what we do. We go hang out with the single girl, right? Like, we're going to mitigate all that. We're going to submit to our husband, who's a provider, protector, and the priest of our home. Okay. If most women are down for that, because that's what most men are asking for. What are we really talking about? Like,
no.
What are we talking about? Like when we say submission, what are we talking about? We're talking about someone that's agreeable. We're talking about someone that's willing to trust us. We're talking about someone that's willing to have sex frequently. And we're talking about someone that's not going to go hang out with her toxic female friends and go to the club. Like, literally, that's what we're talking about, like 5 things.
All right. I like this. Which one comes first? Do you submit to someone, or do they first have to have something before you submit? Like,
yeah, great question. My opinion is, men, get your ish together. That's my opinion.
So we're on the same page then.
Yeah, and I'm not mad at women who are like, yeah, he's kind of a loser, and he's asking me to submit to him. And then my pushback will be, why are you talking to him? What is happening? Are you are you talking to him with the desire of like, okay, this is going to be, I'll reference someone that everyone's going to hate in the chat. This is going to be an IKEA marriage, coined by Kevin Samuels. We're going to build together. We're going to build something together. And that was our dynamic. It was much harder for my wife to, quote unquote, submit to me year 1 than it was year 14. It just, that just is what it is. But on year 14, I'm a totally different man because of her faith in me and her trust in me and her telling me, you can do this. Right. And so like, that's what I mean by complementarian.
So that seems like you being loyal, you recognizing what that person did for you, you being appreciative and understanding to some level reciprocity in your duty as a man.
Yes.
That is
early
great.
20s though. Early 20s. Yeah, I'm not talking about women doing this in their 30s. Don't do this in your 30s. Find a man that got his stuff together in his 30s. I'm talking about you starting 18, 19, 20 years old. You can build something together. You can mold him and he can mold you.
I can appreciate that you anticipate where I'm going. That much is like, I appreciate that. And I actually like that. Additionally, and I'll add, because I was going to ask that question and then this. Have you heard of the starter wife phenomena?
Yes, but I'm not super privy to it. So you could kind of hit me to it if you want to.
Yeah, it is specific to the Black community, actually. But
Oh,
it
okay. I
goes
didn't know that. I
beyond.
thought that was more of like rich people have starter wives and then bounce.
Oh yeah, no. And it go. Oh, I didn't even read that comment. It There is this sense that, and what's his name? Kanye West said it. When he gets on, he leaves here for a white woman or something like that.
Okay. I didn't know this phenomenon was like a Black community thing. Okay, so you're
Yeah,
educating me.
and so there is no. I can appreciate what you're saying, from a theoretical point of view, but watching and hearing stories anecdotally, but then also looking at the research and reading Ralph Richard Banks, it's difficult to say work together and build him up, right? From, I think, Black women's perspective, that is setting yourself up to not only lose a man, but lose a ton of investment. We're, you know what I mean? Whereas I think with you and your wife, you came together, and when times were tough for you, she stood up. When times were tough for her, you stood up. And now you are at a place where she doesn't ever, hopefully, have to ever feel like she needs to be strong and provide or anything like that. Because you got that. But a lot of people don't get that luxury after they've invested into in someone.
Yeah.
And maybe
That's hard. That's hard,
yeah.
man. I don't have anything for that. The only thing I would point to is how can we like, because I could go to statistics, but there's an issue between causation and correlation, right? But
Yeah.
what they found is like the more you earn, the less likely you are to get divorced, and then it kind of flattens out, right? And that divorce is actually most common amongst people who are poor. That like it's a like, so when we say 50% divorce rate, like the more you go up the income status, and the more you go up, this is crazy, the religious commitment status, the least likely you are to get divorced. So for example, clergy are Christian clergy are statistically the least likely to get divorced. So I would say, man, that's brutal. I can't speak too much into that. I would just say, can we mitigate risk by quantitatively improving our situation, by still having some autonomy and still being individual people? My wife has all kinds of stuff she does on her own. Like, I'm not doing everything with her. She doesn't do everything with me. So can we do things to go on the way to mitigate our risk? In the same way, I don't want to die from heart disease, so I'm trying to get shredded and be in top tier shape. My wife is doing the same. Can we do similar things for our marriages? Can we invest into going on a retreat, a marriage retreat once a year? Can we take vacations away from the kids? Can we have regular date nights? Can we invest in therapy individually if we need it and we have trauma? My wife is Black, by the way.
I literally was gonna say you don't have to answer the question.
No, it's
I know
fine.
the answer.
They can look me up on Instagram and easily find it. So I would say, and by the way, your chat is incredible. They show you so much love with the super chats. I'm jealous right now. But
wait, no. Wait, I need to pause you on that. I beg them not to. Like, I literally beg them not to. It's very uncomfortable for me. I don't read all of them, and it feels very weird. But
that's that reverse psychology right there.
Oh, yeah.
Don't do it. Don't send me any money. And then they keep sending you money. I love it. Yeah. No, listen, I think a lot of what we're saying is similar. And I hear that. And I don't know. I can't speak to that. Like, I can't speak. Again, selection bias on my part. I know a ton of Black men who are in their 30s, been married for 10 years, are the providers. Their wives have ministries or speaking things. Or like, my wife serves in our church children's ministry. And there's some autonomy where they can still be themselves, while at the same time, there's complementarianism in submission in the marriage. And I could approach you, but to be fair, this might be selection biased on my part. I just may have access to people that the average person doesn't know, because I've been in the music industry for 10 years, Christian music industry at that. I've been an entrepreneur since 2015, right? Like, so my landscape might be different. And so to be fair, I'm probably not as on the ground as folks that are like, yo, I'm just working a 9 to 5 and how do I do this, right? So I will concede that point where I might have, like, I'm around a lot of hyper creative, hyper disciplined, hyper financially literate people from the Black community, you know, like in Atlanta, like a lot of my friends who are there are like very successful. And so I think there could be some selection bias on my part if I'm being transparent in that regard.
Yeah. People are in the chat. They're asking for your Instagram. Let me put that up here.
Yeah, it's just Ruslan
now.
KD on all platforms. No, rich white men have starter wives too. Okay, yeah, I didn't know. I mean, yeah, I always thought it was like a rich thing. Like I always thought it was like a rich thing. I didn't know that was like a Black thing.
Yeah, no, I mean, statistically, I mean, we can say that, but it bears out, specifically if you read Ralph Richard Banks. Below his Instagram is, I hope I got that correct.
This is Ruslan KD on all platforms.
Yeah, so that's it down there. It's flashing across the screen.
But yeah, ladies, shoot me a DM. I might know a guy. I'm just saying, you know, don't, you know, you never know, you know, but at the same time, like these are going to be the expectations of guys that I'm talking to. And I'm not talking about the red pill nonsense. I'm going to debate and demolish Rollo on Valuetainment. We're trying to lock in the date. So like that's going to happen. You know what I mean? That's going to happen.
Debate, because I would love to cover it.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. I mean, it's a lot of prep because I got to read his terrible books, The Rational Male. Now I got to sit here and actually consume the entire book.
I did start reading that and I stopped. I was like, absolutely not.
You know what? Hey, I might need your help in prepping for that. I'll reach out. Once I'm going through it, I get the book on Sunday on Amazon, so I'll reach out and see maybe if you can give me some pointers.
Yeah, no, sounds good. I definitely would love to help in any way. Thank you. So, by the way, I'm saying thank you as if you're done, but if you are done,
yeah, I got to start my stream. We got folks over there waiting for me.
All right. Thank you so much. I really did appreciate you coming on. Let me know if you need my help. And I would love to, I'm definitely going to watch that.
I will need your lawyer brain and to sniff out the BS studies that they use. So yes, I will need your help preemptively.
Thank you.
All right, brother, thank you so much.
Yeah. Have a good one. Thank you. I really appreciate this. I'm going to drop the link in the chat. So that the first half was Ruslan coming on. I was trying very desperately not to focus too much on the chat. And I couldn't read the super chats because it would have broken the sort of dialogue happening. However, I'm going to drop the link now so you guys can come up. You can agree, disagree with him, agree with me, disagree with me. Obviously do so respectfully, and let's get into it. Yep. Let me drop the link. By the way, one of my favorite things to see happening in conversations, I like people anticipating what I'm going to say and answering it before I ask. I think it's the highest level of like intellect, or I think I just really like it. Sometimes it's intrusive, but like it's really good when you can do that and do it accurately. It's an example of good communication skills. So period. Where is my phone? I need to pin the link. How do I pin this link? Hey, Ruled by Venus. You're muted. Ruled by Venus. Oh. Concern. Yeah.
Hold on 1 second, Phoebus. 1 second. Let me turn you off the TV. Hold on.
All right. Afro Butterfly, welcome to the membership, by the way.
Thank you. I just want to take a second and say thank you, because I've been watching your channel for a while, and I think you have such important and necessary conversations for our community, and the way you take time to articulate everything and then double back and dissect in case there's some double speak or some BS. Much appreciated.
Thank you. But before you continue, let's take a moment to appreciate your background. I don't know what that is, but it is giving. Like I'm here for. No, not dimples. Not dimples. Oh, this is everything. You're everything right now. You're giving me everything I need right now.
Thank you.
Those are the most beautiful dimples I think I've ever seen. So not dimples. All right. Go ahead. There are people in the back, so I don't want to hold up everyone.
Yeah, no. Just in brief, I think that's where we get stuck in this cyclic loop of sort of placing the blame on either gender, and I'm struggling to see a way forward for our community. I know everybody's saying, okay, well, there's reasons, justifiable reasons for the divestment movement or justifiable reasons for dating out, and it feels overwhelming because I desire having a family and I would prefer to be in my own community doing that, but I also understand for my livelihood, for the health of my family, for the health of whatever family unit I create, that it might be better to look elsewhere. And it's sort of disheartening, but also hearing the gentleman just speak who just left, he was sort of speaking from a place of not really understanding the intricacies and the minutia going on in our community. Like if people were earning, then I could see his provide, protect, priest model sort of. I could co-sign that, but we don't have that luxury right now. There are some earning men. I do well for myself, and it's men who are like would be my peers. The things that they require aren't typically of substance. Sometimes some do, but most of them are sort of stuck in their second adolescence. So it's like, I'm not gonna yoke myself to you, So when I hear him, he's sort of giving that narrative of choose better, and that's like the most frustrating narrative that I hear coming from.
I mean, I think I was planning to push back on that, but what ultimately we landed on and agreed is attempt to mitigate risk, right? And
what does that mean, though?
It is a version of choose better that highlights that you can actually choose better. Like you can try to choose better, but like you never know. So an attempt to mitigate risk is saying, I will not have a child with future, right? Like if you have a child with future, you have not mitigated your risks. But we know that you can try to choose better and end up in the same position as other people that didn't try to choose better, because the reality is, how do you quote unquote vet, right?
You don't know until you're in that situation and someone's put to a moral character test.
Yeah, but I think when I heard mitigate risk, part of that is saying there is some responsibility that you have to take, but you cannot know. You're not clairvoyant, you're not the FBI, you're not the CIA, and even if you were, they all failed at vetting, right? So it's not likely that you could vet with any real certainty, because people are gonna lie, they're gonna deceive, like it's just gonna happen. But you should not be having children with future, right? Like that much is obvious.
The most obvious example, and of course, I think at this point in time, aside from the Phillies that still go over there, I would say majority of women would obviously know not to do that situation. Why? There's tangible, visible evidence that he has multiple children from multiple.
Yeah, no. And that's, when I hear mitigate risk, though, I'm thinking there are definite no-nos, but we are all the yes. And that's part, the other part of the vetting conversation. So for me, for example, I will never say this is how you know a man is good, because you will fail every single time. You will, but I can tell you this is how you know a man is bad. Like I can tell you, probably not. If they do this, if they do this, if they do that, no, right? But that's not fully useful. That's like 50% of the way. The other 50, and the hard part is the part that people want answers to, is, well, how do I choose the right man?
Because again, that what you're getting at that the more gray area of things, right? It's obvious if he already has the evidence here, like he has multiple children that he tells you about, or
that
you know,
he tells you about.
but you don't know how someone's going to react to a stressful emotional situation. Will they be able to? Oh, yeah. Will they be able to? Are they willing to go to therapy? Are they actually going to show up and follow through with the things, the verbal plan that they lay out? That's the discussion I have with most of my male friends.
Yes.
So.
I appreciate you being on. Thank you so much. Please come back. And please, when you come back, be on the screen, because you on the screen is everything to me.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great one.
Bye. Concern, I'm going to add 2 people at once. And I got my so Concern, how are you?
I'm doing well. You're such a nice person, Phoenix. Like, you're just, I don't know, you're so warm. And like, she was everything. And I'm so glad that you said something. So yes. Okay. How are you? Are you feeling good coming from that conversation? Because as a listener, I really appreciate how you guys had that dialogue, even though I disagree with some of your guys' takeaways. It was just such a thoughtful conversation.
I mean, the bar is really low at this point, right? Like, for just a good I thought it was a really good conversation, right? But like, it just made me feel good that we can have a good that I can have a good conversation.
Right? With a man. And my takeaway with Ruslan, I hear him, that's his ideal. I don't necessarily know if we really should just assume that it's working, just because, as much as, and this is not to disrespect him, but we don't know it from the women's side. A lot of times women are not the ones talking about the joys here. And we had one person last week talk about it, but we don't know about somebody who's 14 years in, being in a position where they've given away the ability to kind of have leverage in conversations about where we're going, what we're doing. And so one of the things that I appreciated, and I hope can happen more, is that that men can keep talking about this so that we can evolve to new answers. Just because I'm not sure we're there yet in terms of, I think there's still rose-colored glasses around around tradition and around times that are no longer relevant to right now. And the Bible was written by men. We don't know if the women liked those situations that were these that they were talking about. And so I want to encourage these conversations to keep happening, because I think they're important, and the outcomes will evolve. But I don't think we're there yet, because it just seems like we're taking for granted that it's working, and we're taking for granted that everybody's acting in good faith, and we're taking for granted that everybody takes accountability and personal ownership, and is able to be vulnerable in situations when it comes to relationships, vulnerable and committed and loving. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that does make sense. I think I don't play devil's advocate ever, but to the extent that I'm not in his relationship, obviously I have to go by what he says. I respect him enough to do that. But I do take what you're saying seriously, and I agree to a large extent. But I do also recognize that there's a lot of women who would like to adhere to the principles of the Bible to the extent that their counterparts could actually live up to their end of the bargain, right? Like, if they could do what the Bible mandates for men, then, as you saw the vote, there's a lot of women who would like that kind of engagement.
Totally. And I think that makes sense. I think that, more power to them, right? Like, your life, your choice. I do think that with regard to even following the things of the Bible, there's still so much variance, because I think it's more like, is it to the T? How much to the T? And I don't mean to nitpick or draw straws, because the point is not for me to like have accurate, like an accurate, sample to look underneath a microscope with. But I think that, my objection, so to speak, is that, can we say that can we say that both parties are happy with this deal? And also, can we say that they're accurately representing what this relationship is supposed to be, what this relationship is in the Bible? Or is it kind of like directional, And if it's directional, I don't know if it's preachable. But that's just my take on it. And I'm not, and again, total respect, sure. I'm sure that they have a happy relationship. It seems like he's a good faith person who, is thoughtful in his responses. And so I'm sure his wife experiences the benefits of that. It's just, when I think about, most of the, like, I don't know how many people are really good faith, actors in the dating scene right now. And I asked the question, I'll stop here. I asked the question that I'm not sure if it made sense when it came up, because he looked a little confused. It's like, we talk about the difference between, when you met in your 20s and you met in your 30s. You had mentioned, or somebody else had, that a lot of times, or maybe it was the first time Ruslan came on, that a lot of times men who are single in their 30s, Black men who are single in their 30s are looking at other men who are saying, straight and narrow road. Well, that guy's married. I can't relate to that. I have my flesh is bothering me. It's like, yeah, but like, do men pressure men to marry the women that they're with in their 20s? Because I maintain he was probably talking to somebody in his 20s that he did not marry. So I'm just wondering if there is that kind, if you would couple pressure to marry the woman with that whole manlyhood charge, so to speak.
Yeah. I'm not sure how to answer that, but I think, can you bring that up again? Because I don't know. Obviously, he married his wife, and they've been together for 14, I think he said, years, having met in their 20s and having to go through that. But we know that that's not necessarily generalizable, let's say, right? Like, that kind of build him up approach doesn't always work. But I have to come back to your question. Well, it's not really a question, it's more of a concern. His wife gave him the tea on Black men, which is why she is with a white man. He's about to take Black men out of the home. I can't with you. I should not have read that out loud. Thank you so much, concern.
All right, I'll be back. Bye.
Yep, ruled by Venus. Go ahead. Ruled by Venus, you're muted. You keep going on and off mute. I'm not sure what's happening. I think that might be a technical. Can you leave and come back? All right, so we have the cat-eyed oracle and Cannon Hill. Let's start with the cat-eyed oracle. Go ahead.
Hi, feminist.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. I'm trying to take notes. I'm going to do a video on this video. So as you guys speak, I'm actually kind of trying to take notes too, but go ahead.
Well, I'm actually going to make things a little more interesting because I'm actually on here to prove that Black woman is God instead of a man. Okay?
Wait. Before you do, let me take a sip. You have, I'm putting 2 minutes for you on the timer instead of like less than that. I may.
Yes, I wish I had 10 minutes because I would tie it all together, but I'm fine with 2 minutes.
All right, let's hear this. And after you are done, I won't even respond. I will go to the chat and I will ask the chat if they agree or disagree. Go ahead.
Okay, so first I want to say, do Black men honestly go against Black women because Black women have forgotten that they are God first. That's number one. Essentially, there's a fascination with white women, right? So a lot of Black women are Christians. So imagine that a lot of Black men are Christians. So their prayers are going to, I know you don't think so, but it's a white God. I know they don't, they say that a God does not have a skin color, but a God does have a frequency. So if a people create a God, it's going to have the ultimate version of their frequency. You cannot change a God's frequency. It's the creator of that God is going to be that God. So essentially they're worshiping that. So they're making the white woman glow instead of making them glow. That's why Black men essentially can't get enough of white women, because Black women are not making themselves glow. You get what I'm saying? Like okay, so men are in charge of the world's chaos because they have the stronger arm. Women would naturally be order. The most chaotic thing on the planet would be a beast, an animal. The most feminine thing on the planet is a tree. So naturally, if you go to divine, this is divine knowledge, ancestral knowledge, or whatever. So we all come through a woman to connect us by the roots of that tree. Okay? I've actually met that tree. It's our consciousness. Our consciousness, essentially, something gives birth to our consciousness every moment throughout the day. Like, even when we're not paying attention, our cells, everything, like why we exist. The Black community needs a power to rally around, and we don't have that. And it's very clear that something in Black men is sleep. See, we have an umbilical cord connected with our planet, and Black women, all women actually are God, believe it or not, but Black women were first. Okay, so we have an umbilical cord. Women are essentially our umbilical cord connected to our planet. So a man, when he hits a woman, he's essentially hitting our planet. That's how women get through childbirth. The planet is conscious of everything that women are going through, because women are her feelers in the world. So when a man kisses a woman, he's kissing the ultimate mother, the planet. He's kissing the ultimate woman. It wouldn't be like a woman like how we see, like Oprah or Beyonce. It would be something pure to even beyond them, pure to its source. But women get their power passively. Like she gets, the womb is a bubble. So women get their crown, their power passively. So whoever enters a woman's bubble is supposed to get healed. They're supposed to get love. They're supposed to get nurtured. That's how women, by being love, that's how women get their power. Men get their power by being like the sun. The sun shows up and it provides warmth. It's active. So the sun, if you know about the Matrix, I don't know how many people know about the Matrix, but it's definitely real. Sun is a word play on the word sun. So if you say that out loud, you still mean the same exact thing. I took notes, so I have more notes. But essentially, men have manifested the modern woman. The same problem that they're complaining about, they have manifested that. When you look at women, more women are going under the knife to look like men's porn. They're going under the knife to look like, they're showing their boobs more. Men wanted this. Now men are attacking this. They're repelled by this because they're having buyer's remorse, because this is not what they wanted. They wanted women to be a goddess, but they couldn't understand that is what they were supposed to want or whatever. Okay, so Black women were supposed to come together with all women, and it's okay. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go
You
ahead.
can
Go
finish that sentence. You can finish that sentence.
Okay, yeah. Black women, we're supposed to come together with all women because you women unite the tribes of humanity. All the tribes of humanity, women unite the tribes. It was actually women who instilled justice and stuff, and men carried it out. Men are her lightning bolt. It's men who are the action of it, the consequence. But we think we're supposed to think like a village, and we think individual minded. And the Matrix has taught us to think as individuals when all our suffering is supposed to matter to all of us,
All
essentially.
right.
So go ahead. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Someone said, yes, God is a black woman. Excellent read. The deeper mysteries are studies.
Thank
Uh,
you.
mysteries are studies of
Thank
the hidden
you. I
ones.
got
Matthew
more. I got plenty
22.
more. I could prove it, but I don't have
Wait,
enough
before you
time. But go
continue,
ahead.
thank you. Drop
I'll
a
be back.
one. Yeah, drop a one if you agree. Drop a two if you do not. As we wait for those polls, one to agree, two if you do not. Cannon, go ahead.
Hey, famous, how are you?
Doing well. I was taking notes, but my notes could not keep up.
No, I'm happy to be here. Happy to see you as usual. And great conversation too. The main thing that I wanted to add to the conversation is that I think a lot of times, especially from a theology perspective, when it gets discussed about submission, it's like in 2022, like they say the word submission, but when they describe it in a way that's egalitarian. Because even the example that he gave of he wanted to go to one church and his wife wanted to go to the other, they talked about it and he waited for her. Basically, he waited for her to come around for them to come to a consensus, right?
Wait. Before you continue, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
That's fine.
Everyone in the chat needs to go in the corner. Y'all are not gonna have me out here laughing. Go ahead, Karen.
But yeah, but when he described it, he described something that's, I mean, indicative of most relationships. You can have a disagreement about something, you discuss it, and then you all come to an agreement and kind of decide on what you're going to do. But the way it's talked about is like, well, I have the final say. But and then they'll even always say, well, I'll take what my wife has to say into consideration, and sometimes I'll make the decision that she wants. And it's like, so are you really like, so basically you guys are discussing, having a conversation, and you're agreeing on things, just like in any other relationship. Like, is it really a submission thing if you guys are talking about it, right? You are taking what she says, she's taking what you say as well. Or is it more of just an ego thing where we have to say it was your decision because you're the man? So we both know that we're feeding your ego to be like, oh, well, I'm letting the man do it because it's his decision, even though you guys are just being in a relationship where you're just having conversations, you're agreeing on the direction of where you're going, you're taking each other's input, and you're making a decision. Like, that's kind of the thing that's being described. Yeah. The second part in these conversations, I think, is this patriarchal thing and how it harms men as well. And the fact that it's not just Black men who can't live up to this patriarchal ideal, it's most men.
Let me pause your time. I'm not telling people how much time. I'm randomly assigning time. Call it whatever. But no, I appreciate the where you're going now, in that men keep talking about leadership and all of that. There is a ton of responsibility that comes with you wanting that role, including dying if necessary, for everyone else. And that's fine. I'm here for that. But do you understand what it is that you're asking for? And so when a lot of these men who can provide, protect, can't even speak, talk about wanting submission and hating feminism, I'm usually confused because you all should be the biggest feminists out there. like you should be marching you should be marching. But go ahead. Sorry. Start again.
No, I agree with you. That was where I was going with it. That, this patriarchy, and when you put that with capitalism, it needs men to lay down their lives. For it needs men's lives to be devalued. You know, it needs men to stuff down their emotions and not to have any. And so it's like a lot of times they don't consider how those ideals that most men cannot achieve is one of the reasons why the highest death rates from gun violence is self-deletion of white men, right? And a lot of that has to do with the fact that they can't even live most of them, like there's a very small group of the population that can live up to this performance of what that's supposed to be. Yeah. Yep.
No, I mean, period. Nothing else to say, but period. Thank you. Agree. The wives say they
Thank
just
you.
let them believe they made the final decision. Thank you so much, Cannon. I really appreciate this. By the way, I need to figure out how to get other YouTubers on to like talk with them, because if this is how conversations with other YouTubers are, like I've spoken to Mahogany Pink, that was a lovely conversation. Pink Pill, Cynthia G, did Yanni come on? I don't know. There so many YouTubers when they come on, I think because they've been in the space and they've done it, it's so easy. Like it's so easy to talk to them, like so easy. And obviously all the women here mostly. So I probably should do that. I probably should do that. Anyway, Raquel.
Rochelle.
Oh my God!
Oh,
You get 4 minutes because every single time,
that's
every,
okay.
every single time.
You got it one time. That's okay.
I did.
Okay.
Did I get it one time? I feel like I've never gotten it.
No, you did. Like a few lives ago, you did. It's okay. We'll start over.
All right, from zero. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So I have a few points actually. I
You
think
have
the
you have the
main.
most minutes, so you can do
Oh,
it.
thank you. Okay. I think the main problem here is that we're living in a society or culture or whatever it is that just devalues women and doesn't see the value on for women as a whole. And I feel like that's what's causing all these problems at the moment, where like now men are trying to figure out if women should submit to men and everything. And it's like we should live in a world where women are seen as like an equal partner to men, not something that can be like used to submit to. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
I
so
think that's where this disconnect is happening.
no,
It's like
I think
we're just living in a culture.
you said you had a few points, but I want to touch on that. So I did a chart last night for this discussion, and we were going to get into specifics on the Bible where it why was Eve created, what is the implication of why Eve was created and her specific role to Adam, and what that means. I did go through the Bible. I read a lot of, not all of it, obviously. I've read all the Bible at one point, but not all of it in preparation for this. But I realized this was a more relaxed kind of conversation. And so I wish, in terms of women and equality and all of that, I actually wanted to dig more into it, but I don't know if I preferred where the conversation went, but the conversation I think went in a very different direction, and I appreciate it because it was good. But continue. I take your point is essentially what I'm saying.
Yeah, and it just kind of seems like living in the 21st century, it's like we're coming against this conflict where there are Christians who want to use the Bible to combat, modern day feminism. When I feel like, I mean, personally, I'm a Catholic, born and raised and everything, but to me, I don't feel like anywhere in the Bible where it talks about, women being less than men, or like where women shouldn't have equal rights or fair treatment. You know what I mean? So I just feel like we're coming like against a force of certain Christians who want to weaponize the Bible in order to have women submit for their own personal control or whatever. Because it's just like, why are certain men having all this power to control women and use the guise of Christianity when clearly we know that's not what it really is about.
Yeah.
And it's just like this conflict happening, and it's so hard because we're not getting anywhere. And it's just like now women are trying to fight for their rights and keep be seen as equal once again, but we're getting there. We're chipping away, but it kind of interests me when you asked Ruslan that question about how what would the Bible say about stay-at-home dads, and he was stumped. And it's just like, that's the thing, you can't really use.
Stumped. He was not stumped. He said it doesn't agree with it, but he has friends who are stay-at-home dads, so he didn't want to really put them on blast. But he gave an answer. He definitely
his answer was he didn't want to comment on it. But
no. He did give he gave an affirmative, definitive answer that it does not, in his opinion. He did.
He did. He just didn't want to talk about his friend, his guy friend.
But he did give the answer.
He did. But that's the thing where I think just like there are some Christians who just have to, not use a book that was made 2,000 years ago in the context of today. Like, we have to, pick and choose. I know there might be some Christians who don't like to hear that, but not everything that happened to, like, 2,000 years ago is applicable today. Like, the cost of living is higher, like the cost of housing is higher. It's just different. It's a different time.
Thank you. Is there a bell emoji? I think my emoji should be the bell emoji. Thank you, Rochelle.
Thank you.
Bye. Paris?
Hi, Themis.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing well. I first, before I get started, wanted to ask you, did you think for a second his wife was not Black based on the muling that he described?
The muling. I can't believe you used that with the descriptor. I knew his wife was Black because I had done a video on him before, and I saw him and his wife in the community tab of his thing.
I definitely, based on what he was describing as far as him going to school and trying to get his stuff together, and his wife or fiance, whoever she was at the time, working 2 jobs to allow for him to have the space to improve himself, I was like, oh, she's definitely Black. That is our MO.
I mean, to be fair, he did do a story on his channel, and I think I don't know him personally, but I think he is someone who overstate that which is done for him, just as a general matter, because when he told the story, it seemed like it was an egalitarian relationship, and they were both providing, even when he went to school and all of the music stuff. And he did tell the story, and then he started out earning her, and she also had a child, and he made sure she stayed home and he took care of her. She also was very opposed to not working. So there was a lot of agency on her part. So I understand the framing of muling. I would not ascribe that to his wife, but the way he's going to talk about his wife is he's going to literally like uplift her in a way that he thinks is uplifting. But I think we register that as a different, because we have different experiences. I would not put that on her, because if you see her, and you would understand that she's not that. No.
When I say muling, I'm not saying it in a negative connotation as much as it is just a descriptor.
In what connotation is it positive? Please tell me what connotation.
It's not trying to be negative or positive. It's just a descriptor, because you can work 1 job when you're working 2. That's going above and beyond.
Yeah, but when you say someone is a muling, is that not a negative connotation?
Not to when it comes to, I will
When you
say
say
this.
you
I
mule,
will relent this. I would say this, right?
right.
When I just use the descriptor muling, I'm saying there is an extra action that is being done on the account of someone else not doing more too. So it
All
is
right.
something that she's giving
So if I
extra.
describe the way you interact with people as muling, you are fine with it. Like you mule for people.
Oh, I definitely do.
It's a negative connotation.
Listen, we just not have a big blow up on the last panel when I was mad about always taking care of people's kids. I'm definitely that person.
Period. But finish your sentence. Your time is up, but I kept interrupting, so I'll let you
Okay,
finish
yes.
your statement.
So one big thing that I definitely think this conversation, which I wish Curry Up and Eat would come up. She is just on fire tonight. But also the idea that a woman's life, her worth, everything about her is predicated on men and how we show up for men is definitely not something that I subscribe to. I'm not religious because organized religion was literally created to oppress women. So I push back on a lot of that. I am more egalitarian, which sometimes is why some of my viewpoints don't hit the same sometimes, I feel like. And I don't date men that have these viewpoints. So when I'm talking to them, if they already start with a Bible, I'm like, that's it. We're not talking no more. But I would definitely say look up who Ashira is, who is the Abrahamic religion's female counterpart to their God. It's
Can you
completely left
message
out of the
that to,
Bible.
can you message that to me again? I think I saw it in a super chat.
Yes, it's basically God's counterpart female. And
Right.
that's left out of a lot of religions nowadays, which is why they have this strong disdain and hate for women because they
Yeah.
feel we're less than.
I will forget the name because names and I do not get along. But can you message it to me on somewhere so I can look it up?
I sure can.
Thank
And just
you.
remember the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Council of Nicaea, they took out tons of stuff in the Bible.
Oh, someone mentioned that on the last
Yeah,
live, and I'm looking into that.
they took out tons of stuff, and it's a book that was strategically created and crafted the way it is to suppress women. That's why you see the most heinous things in these types of religions when it comes to women and how they treat women.
Thank you. Is it Kadari? Thank you, Paris, by the way. Have a good night.
You too.
Kadari. Going once, twice. All right. Ruled by Venus. Let's try this again. Before you go, while women are submitting to them, who are they submitting to? I mean, biblically, God. Again, women have definite punishment and rules, and they submit to God. Yet He always have the final say. He going to tell you what God say. Sorry, I don't know why I thought that was funny. Go ahead. Ruled by Venus.
I pray you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. You have 2 minutes.
All right. First of all, I think you're an amazing content creator. I just wanted to tell you that. But the conversation with what's his name, Ruslan?
Yeah.
I thought it was very refreshing. I agreed with most of what he said. Just to be clear, I am a Black woman, but I wanted to come up because I was really shocked by the ladies in the comments, and I'm really afraid that we got to a point where like all of the toxic stuff in the manosphere has us on such a defense that we can't even be open-minded enough to at least hear someone out. And I just wanted to say, like, ladies, we can't be like that. Because it was a lot of like just anything he said, it was just kind of like an attack or just like a doubt, a defense. Like everyone's not trash. And I'm not saying his marriage is, I don't know, I'm not over there, but I'm saying he appears to have not said anything that was outlandish. So I didn't see why there was so much pushback. And The other thing was, I know the terms choose better is like triggering, right? Because we've been hearing that too. But I do think there is some truth in it. And I'm not speaking from a place like I'm above it, because I've chosen horribly as well. But I'm saying it in a way to where we do have to take some responsibility for the decisions we make as well. And so that's kind of what I got from what he was saying.
Yeah, well, I will always have a problem with choose better, just as a general matter, because it's this oversimplification for a very nuanced issue. But I think it's not necessarily, like you're saying, completely outlandish, because if you think about it from like mitigating again, I'll say that there are obvious people you should not pick. The problem is, how do you choose right? Like, telling me to choose better is one thing, telling me how to choose the right person is another. That's the other end that I think is hugely difficult to do. So I mean,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
no. Because if you tell someone to choose better when they chose someone who did not show any signs that they would be horrible, then telling them to choose better is ridiculous unless you're going to tell them how to choose better.
So I do agree. I just want to, I'm sorry, I was reading the comments really quick, ladies, just to be
Please don't
clear. I'm
do
not,
it. Don't read the comments.
okay, I just want to address this one thing because I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm not saying we should have agreed, but I'm saying I was watching it in real time with you guys, and I saw a lot of negativity to the point I wrote, "Hey, ladies, let's not be negative." Like, a lot of you, whether you realize it or not, I am trying to help in saying that you guys are kind of, I don't know what the right word is, like jaded now to even when a man kind of sort of says something, it triggers a response out of you. And I just would encourage everyone to just be open-minded enough to listen, because I don't think he said anything too outlandish. That's just my opinion.
Yeah. I apologize to everyone also. For the most part, I ignored. Thank you, by the way, Ruled by Venus. I actually don't know what was happening in the chat. For the large part, like if the screen light up and there's a super chat, I put it on the screen. But I was actually trying to focus in on the conversation. So I don't know what was I really don't know what was happening generally in the comment section. um Brand, go ahead. Wait, before you go, financial abuse is a real thing that women would be anxious about. It's not just a small percentage of men. Yeah, I mean, I think this is super important. If I were an advice giving person on this channel, I would say, yeah, don't depend on no man for nothing. But I would be extraordinarily radical about that. Go ahead, Brand.
Yes, peace to everybody. I first like to just say thank you just for even having that topic. I just want to speak on behalf of not just as far as personal relationships and just things like that, but when it comes to just biblical things, because that is more so my expertise and just area. Um, I think it's kind of getting conflated when you just put it when you're comparing worldly man to biblical scripture and standards. For a lot of these people, just living in today are not even living in a way that's of the Bible, so they cannot expect to get any results thereof. So whether it be a man or a woman, I just wanted just to speak on like first and foremost about half of the Bible, because it seems like it gets thrown up in the conversation and nuance. It actually is where the slander comes in, because it seems like that is the oppressing point. However, the Bible actually speaks against oppression of women. The Bible speaks highly of a woman. It actually says that a man that find a virtuous woman find it a good thing, for she is far above rubies. There are a lot of women in the Bible who have spectacular points of view. Like, yes, Eve was one character. However, there are so many other characters, whether you go to Sarah, who was barren for so many years, but God actually shows most of his workings through a woman. And it's not that the Bible personally wants to separate a woman for doing, because if you look at biblical times, the women, they may have not done the exact same work as the men, but they were doing work too. And it was all just the same. They all had to go and give an account. They had to pay tithes for. If you look at the just the circumstances of how Jesus was born, for his mother was 8 months pregnant, but she still had to go across to Jerusalem just like her husband did. 8 months pregnant to where she had to give birth on the way there, and where she couldn't even find a place to give birth to Christ the Savior. I mean, then also some people like try to use Old Testament scripture, and really the whole basis of Christianity, it comes from the New Testament. Not saying that the Old Testament and the New Testament don't agree, because they do. However, the Old Testament is concealed, but the New Testament, everything is revealed. Because if you're going on the basis of Christianity, then no man on earth truly had a real understanding of anything until Jesus himself came down, being the Son of God, to give them an explanation. Because Moses, the law came to him originally, because these were a lawless people who had nothing. However, he chose them and gave them some form of not even salvation, but he just gave them an inheritance.
Wait. All right.
Yes, sir.
I'm stopping your time so that we can actually engage in a kind of conversation here.
Yes, sir.
One of the questions I wanted to ask, well, I'll ask you again. Is the Bible patriarchal? Does it put men at the head and women at the somewhere else, not the head?
I wouldn't say it's patriarchal, because patriarchy didn't exist till after the Bible. The first patriarchy was
Mm-mm.
Rome.
Wait.
Go ahead.
What I'm saying is, does the Bible condone patriarchy?
And when you say patriarchy, you mean as far as a man ruling, like men all coming together, ruling and suppressing, like you talking about, when I think of patriarchy in the negative concept, I'm thinking of the white supremacy patriarchy that came forth, where you had a group of white men who suppressed women, black people, children. It was only white male landowners who were considered rightful people and had rights. So no, I don't
No.
believe the Bible supports that.
No. Patriarchy is making the man the ruler, regardless of any race. So, do you think the Bible supports male leadership and women being secondary to male leadership in that hierarchy?
I just, as far as my understanding in the Bible, and it's just that women, they have different roles. So God, I mean, the scripture specifically said that he wouldn't call on a woman to preach. However, a woman is the women bring life into the world.
All right,
They,
wait.
yes,
So
sir.
he wouldn't call on a woman to lead,
Not to lead, I said to preach the
to
gospel. He wouldn't
preach.
suffer them, put that burden on them. No, that's what the
Yeah.
scripture says.
All right, but you were continuing.
Yes, sir.
I stopped your time, by the way, because I find this kind of fascinating. Um, but he wouldn't.
He wouldn't
He.
suffer a woman to preach, however, because he called men to preach. However, if you look,
Oh, well.
even in the Gospels, the closest disciple and the only one who never doubted him, the most faithful one, was Mary Magdalene. She was the most faithful. She never doubted Jesus. For, I mean, you
Yeah,
had
but I mean, describing a characteristic of an individual as great or good doesn't itself mean the individual is elevated above another group, or that individual elevates their gender above the other. So I'm trying to understand why you're rejecting that patriarchy is promoted by the Bible.
because if you look at the context of that time, those times, those laws were already set up previous to the Bible being written. A lot of the things that were written in the Bible were to give a teaching and understanding to a certain people who were chosen by God in Christ to live differently than the way the rest of the world was living. So all of
Yeah,
these
and
things that it's speaking
wait.
against, yes, sir.
And so Jesus came and all of this happened and the Bible is written. Does the Bible promote that which you said existed before and after, which is patriarchy?
I would say no. I mean, not in a sense to where men have used it. No, that
All
was
right.
just that.
So
I don't think it's biblical.
Gotcha. Thank you. Why was Eve created?
Why was Eve created?
Hmm.
To be a helpmate and a partner to Adam, because he was here lonely with nothing. He
All
was
right.
doing the work of God, but he needed a companion.
All right. And he was, biblically speaking, created from the rib, right?
Yes.
And the man is supposed to be the head.
Christ is the head.
Is the man not the head of the household in the tribe? Secondary to Christ, but is the man not the head?
No, Christ is the head.
I
So
know that there's a Bible verse that says you are the head.
yeah, I mean, so with that being said, if you're doing it in true Christianity, like there is an order to everything. So really, it's the standard. Like I was saying, how it was saying that they wouldn't suffer that on the woman because they already have enough burdens in life as far as the things that they have to go through physically that men would never understand. The fact that they give birth, the fact that they are the ones who are the emotional ones who keep balance and everything else. For the men go forth and preach the gospel, and they have to dedicate their lives, and that's where they are held to a different. It's all about accountability and not power. I think what it is nowadays that people have perversed
I feel
different.
like I told Rosalind this in our message. I said if he disagreed that the Bible promotes patriarchy, we would be having a full-on debate. And he was like, well, I guess we don't have to have a debate because I agree with your definition of it. So I don't want to, because I feel like people are going to be like, oh, Ruslan came on and you didn't debate him. Let's be clear, Ruslan and I agree that patriarchy is embedded in the Bible, at least patriarchy to the extent that the man is a leader and the man is a leader, right? You and I, if we go into a deadlock sort of debate, it's because we disagree on whether or not the Bible promotes patriarchy.
I'm not going to say it promotes it. It was already in existence. Like, for example, are you saying like would a king be over a kingdom compared to a queen?
This is called struggle bandit logic, and that's why he's struggling to answer.
I'm not. I'm
No,
struggling to answer.
I think because like I'm trying to understand how you can argue that the Bible does not promote patriarchy in the face of deciding that Adam needed a helpmate and so took a rib from him, created woman, that women cannot lead in the church, at least preach, that women weren't selected as part of the 12 disciples, right? Like it, it seems kind of obvious, and like you can say benevolent patriarchy is promoted in some ways, but it doesn't make sense that you are objecting to the Bible being patriarchal.
Like I said, you were saying patriarchy as far as it oppressing women. Now, if a man and a woman have two different,
I've never said that.
that's what I'm asking. Then, yes, sir.
How do you define patriarchy? If you want, you can look into the description of this video because I did define it in the description of the video. I
Okay.
mean, simply put, it is men leadership. Men are supposed to lead and women are supposed to follow. Like, no one, I don't think this is called struggle bandit logic. It's not calling someone a name, it's saying, it's describing an approach. Now, I understand why it might be touchy for a lot of people, but this is not, it's strictly speaking, calling someone a name. All right, while you look for that, Prince Petty. Wait, oh my God, there are so many people in the background. This is actually like a really good part of the convo. In the background, let me know if I can get 5 to 10 minutes on this discussion. 10. And if you're okay with that. If you're not, I'll move on and let you guys on. But like, drop a 1 in the private chat if I'm okay to go 10 minutes. I'm trying to be fair to people in there. Except Z, because Z is a moderator and she is more patient than me. So everyone get a vote except ZZ. She is a very patient, lovely. All right, everyone said 1. All right, thank you guys. I'm gonna watch the private chat so you guys can tell me if you like, I need to come on now, and I'll do that. Men are the head, period. Confidence with love. All right, Prince Petty, I think I said. We are having the conversation with Brand, and I don't want it to move beyond the conversation with Brand. Now, So what do you think? Do you think the Bible is patriarchal?
Yes, I do, but that's not why I came up. I had my own separate, like, quick 1 minute thing. So if you wanted to go with him back and forth, then that's fine.
Oh, you can do it. He's looking at the description and reading the description. So while he reads the description, go do your thing.
So first of all, good evening. Second of all, I actually I agree with Rustlin. So yes, I am here to coddle Rustlin today, and I think the women in the chat just don't get it. Submission is equality, but difference, like he was
Absolutely
saying.
not. Next.
Go ahead. For example, the men have dominion over things like over the woman and stuff like finance management.
Pause. Absolutely not.
We're gonna talk about what the woman has dominion over too.
No. Did you just open up with submission is equality? Is that your opening line?
Yes.
Submission is equality.
It's equality, but like Rustlin said, it is difference, right? Men
All right,
will
wait,
have...
before you continue, let me let you know that you have a very heavy burden to lift. So I am here for this. Go on.
Okay, I know the chat's going to drag, but it's equality but difference. The man have dominion over the woman in stuff like financial management, the woman's decision making in her life choices and stuff like that. The woman has dominion over I guess stuff like what to cook for dinner or how to clean the house. So you both have dominion, you know, it's just different, right? Doesn't that sound equal to you, Themis?
Wait. Whoa. Did he just leave? I cannot. It's giving very much. I'm not about to stand in my stuff. Go ahead. No, it doesn't sound equal to me.
So if a man has complete control over your life, but you
if
have
control over a woman and the woman have control over the house, that does not sound equal to me.
It doesn't sound equal to you.
The man have control over the woman and the woman have control over the house. How is that equal?
Okay, I guess I'll just drop that point then.
No, don't drop that point. Am I crazy? I'm not attacking you. I might actually be crazy. I don't know. Are you trolling me?
Do you think having dominion over a person's life decisions and choices and having control over what to cook this evening are equal?
No.
Okay, well, we'll just have to agree to disagree there.
Wait, are you being serious? Prince Freddie, are you being serious?
Yeah. No.
So you're telling me,
no.
You're telling me you believe that having dominion over another human being is equivalent to having dominion over what to cook?
You know, it sounded smarter in my head, Themis, but now that I say it out loud, it doesn't really sound good anymore. So, you know what? I'll drop that point and I'll agree with you. That is not equal. And I want to move to my second and quicker point. The more serious note of pick better, right? Especially to Black women, I think is valid. And that's even something that Ralph Richard Banks talks about. That's something that the divestment community talks about. And like Impossible said in the chat, I think your tone matters, even though it's legitimate advice, regardless of how you say it. Because Rustlin says it's mitigating risk, which is legitimate advice. But most men, again, like Impossible said in the back chat, kind of use it as a way to make the woman responsible for his actions and him ruining the marriage or the relationship. So that's all I had to say today.
All right. I'm not going to push back on your second point, but like, are you being serious about like your first point? Like, were you trolling? Like, let's drop the facade. Were you trolling?
Themis, I want to ask your honest opinion. Do you think that is a serious point that I would make?
No, that's why I'm confused, because you seem really like, I mean, you can act. If you were, I was very concerned. I was actually very concerned.
Maybe I asked the question in the wrong way. The man has control over everything that you and he do in a relationship. You have control over maybe how do you want to clean the house? Do you want to vacuum, sweep, mop?
Okay, so you were being facetious then.
You don't think these are equal, Themis?
All right. I mean, I thought, look, the way people come on here and say the weirdest thing and expect me to agree with them, and I'm like, no, and they like double down. I thought you were serious. I promise, I thought you were serious.
Okay, well, yeah, that's all I had to say. And I do like the addition of the loosely timed bell. And I'll end on this. A great philosopher, his name was Yeat. He once said, "This song was already turned, but here's a bell." And you are giving Yeat bell today. That's a compliment. All right.
Wait, before we go to you, Impossible Brand, are we okay? Are you ready to tell us that the Bible is patriarchal? You're muted. You're muted.
Oh, my bad.
There you go. Oh,
Can you hear me now?
yep.
Yes. Now, what I was saying is that no, I will not say that the Bible, you cannot give me a chapter, book, chapter, and verse where the
Someone
Bible is,
literally just said Ephesians. But go ahead. Explain.
when Ephesians were like, okay, for one, the Bible is not going to make the man the head, because for Christ is the head. So the man can't be the head. So he can play a role and the woman can play a role, because now both of them are the body. Like, for example, one may be the foot and one may be the hand. So my hand may be what can open the door, but it's going to take my foot to get me there. No one of them is greater than the other. And the Bible speaks, that's the scripture. So it's not gonna. I mean, men use, like I said, all of these themes that came about. That's not what Christ was preaching, and that's all that I'm specifically saying. I'm not taking up for these men or any man that does that, because that's actually a perverse of the scripture, where you have people who listen to it to where now they won't even accept Christ
I
in
think
their
you're
life.
perverting the scriptures right
I'm not
now.
talking about, huh?
I think I'm not even like I'm a Christian, but I'm not even that in depth. But I feel like you're perverting the scriptures if you don't think men should be the leaders.
I mean, men, yes, men lead. Men have always led, but
No,
however,
no, no,
that's
no,
not saying that
no.
they have
Wait,
dominion.
nope, nope,
They don't
nope.
have
You're not
dominion.
hearing me. You're not hearing
Yes.
me. From a biblical perspective, if you don't think the man is above the woman, not, let's use not above. If you
That's
don't think the
okay.
Bible is patriarchal, which is above in terms of leadership, and makes the final decision, even if they allow the woman to have a voice, allow the woman to have a voice, it is predicated on patriarchy. Like, now you can say patriarchy is bad or good, which is where I thought the debate would go, but to say it's not patriarchal doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. I mean, and honestly, I may not be able to make it make sense to you, but
Wait, no, 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 you can. I'm gonna
but the
explain
way
how.
I'm coming from it is like
Tell
in a
me
true.
how. Wait.
Go
So
ahead.
you think the Bible views men and women as both equally capable of leadership?
Well, it says that when a man and a woman come together, they become one. So it's not one over the other. They both are one. That's what the Bible says. And if there's a discrepancy in their marriage, it's not that the man automatically is the right answer. If you're a true Christian, you would go and seek the word
Why did Jesus
to get
not have
solace.
Why did Jesus not have a woman as a disciple?
You said, why didn't he choose a woman as a disciple?
Yeah, why did he not?
Well, there were the men. Well, there were women disciples. All a disciple is a follower.
No, we know we're talking about the 12 disciples. Like,
Some
we're
more
not doing that.
apostles. The word's
You talking about
apostles.
the 12 apostles?
The 12 apostles, whatever.
So why were there no female apostles?
Well, for one, women have never. You can go back now. That you can go back to the Old Testament when Aaron was made the minister, although Miriam was older, and she asked the question, and then she was cursed with the leprosy, because it's a priesthood and the order that is what God has given in the Old
Wait.
Testament.
Someone asked a question about women being apostles and was cursed.
I didn't say nothing about a woman. No, I didn't. Hold on, you're conflating it. That's two different things. Because if you go back to Moses, is where all of this. Because yes, Abraham is where they got the religion, but it was Moses who brought them out of it and who actually started them as a organized people. Because prior to that, they were not an organized people.
Did Jesus ordain the Bible, God anywhere in there? Did it ordain a woman to rule ever?
To rule?
To rule, yes.
No. But that
Does
was
it ordain
because
men to rule? No, 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 no.
go
Does
ahead.
it?
Yes, sir.
Are there examples of men being ordained to rule?
In the Bible, it was where men ordained to rule.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean Solomon, David. I mean, were there men ordained to rule?
but that wasn't, that was something, like I'm saying that, okay, I see what you're saying. That's just giving the history of what happened. But my argument is when you break down the Bible first, it comes into different parts. Like even in the Old Testament, the first 5 books are just the Pentateuch, which was the laws of Moses. Then you go from 12 books of history. That's just the history of the Israelites. Then that's when you go to the next 5, which will be poetry, your spirit, like your wisdom and knowledge. That comes in those next 5 books. Then you're going to get to the 5 major prophets. Then you're going to get to the 12 minor prophets. That's the whole Old Testament. Then comes Jesus, which will be the 4 gospels, which is the New Testament. After that, you have the book of Acts, which is history. And then you go from there, because Acts is the development of the church, what we consider the church now.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Impossible.
Yeah, so I was actually hoping to respond to him directly, but it's all right.
No.
The simple fact of the matter is the Bible is patriarchal, and I mean, like, there are several verses that like I see several verses that Z has been putting up in the backroom chat, but there's a few of them I have right here in front of me. Like in first of all, in Ephesians 5, it does say, "Wives, submit yourselves unto your husbands as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he's the savior of the body." And then it goes, "Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything." It literally says in everything, let them be subject to their husbands. So, I mean, like, as far as I know, the word subject does not mean equal, does not mean, at the same level. It means that one is literally in subordination. And then if that, because like I said before, I don't know, I looked at the last time I was on the live and I realized I kind of said this a lot, but I reiterate just to say that obviously people can interpret their faith any which way they want, and which way they want. But there's certain things that's kind of like sort of written on the face of them are a particular thing. In 1 Corinthians chapter 11, it says, "For the man is not of the woman, but the woman of the man. Neither was the man created for the woman, but the woman for the man." And then the last verse I'll point out is 1 Peter chapter 3. It begins with, "Likewise, you wives, be in subjection to your own husbands," and then it goes into a whole bunch of other things. And then the verse that kind of like makes it plain what these New Testament writers mean is 1 Peter 3 chapter 6. "Even as Sarah obeyed Abraham, calling him Lord, whose daughter ye are, as long as ye do well and are not afraid with any amazement." So it's like people can try to, this is the thing I said before, is that people can try to post hoc rationalize what these words in the scriptures mean by saying, "Oh, we can discuss, submission means that, I take her word into account, and when it comes to decision making, but I have the final say so." And it's like all of these things sound nice, and I don't want to sound disrespectful in anyone's faith, but they sound nice and flowery. But the simple fact of the matter of what the scriptures say is that the wives are supposed to obey their husbands. If there was any confusion about what submission means, it means obeisance. And people can interpret their faith any which way they want. Therefore, I say, is someone's religion patriarchal or misogynist? Well, that depends on their own practice and hermeneutics. But this is not a amazing thing to point out about the Bible. It's a really anthropological fruit of its social environment of the Near East. That was the culture of the Near East, and it is to this day, in that wives are expected to be subservient to their husbands. And you can also see this reflected in the fact that that Western society largely came from a Christian perspective, since Christianity became the predominant religion of Europe since the fall.
Give me a second.
Yeah.
Miss Manu, it could have been rude. I don't know. It is beyond my social graces, and it's something that I'm now developing. And I have to, because I'm not about to sit on here for 2 hours to explain to someone the basic principles of the Bible. I am not super religious. I brought on a man who was. Impossible is giving you the quotes that I'm about not about to give to anyone. And every scholar that I know points this out that is worth anything. So if it was rude, I will say this is going to be me from now on. I'm not about to sit here and waste my time explaining something to someone like that. It's not going to happen anymore. So if it's rude, then it's rude. Go ahead, impossible.
So it's like, you know, the thing I was saying is that if you look at Western society, which since the fall of the Roman Empire was largely Christian, and a lot of our societal, cultural, social cues came from the scriptures, you see that not but a few decades ago, a few centuries ago, decades to centuries ago, in America, in America itself, the expectation that the man be the absolute ruler in a relationship was the norm. And it wasn't until certain large social paradigm shifts like feminism came on that that ideas of egalitarianism even became popular to discuss. Now, so I think the simple fact, the clear fact of the matter is that the Bible is patriarchal. Now, is that good or bad? I'm like in First Peter chapter 3, that same verse that said Sarah obeyed Abraham. In the next verse, it says, "Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife." So people can, you know, like I said, extract whatever meanings that they have, or whatever substance that they want for their own dogma about whether or not it's misogynist, or whether or not the, you know, systems of patriarchy. There's systems of patriarchy, there's systems of matriarchy, depending on what culture you look at, and there's systems that aim to be more egalitarian. But I think, you know, we should definitely be honest with ourselves about what the Bible is. The Bible is patriarchal inherently, like it definitively,
Yeah.
self-professingly,
Yeah,
it's patriarchal.
no, and that's the thing. Like, you can argue that it's benevolent patriarchy. You can say patriarchy is good and even necessary if you want, and we can argue whatever. But come on now, we're not going to sit here and you say, I'm asking, hey, is the Bible patriarchy? You're going to say, oh, the history existed before it and after it. That's literally not respond. Does the Bible promote patriarchy? Yes
Right.
or no? You're not. If you say no because patriarchy existed before, that something existed before does not prevent the Bible from promoting it. Like,
Right.
what? That's not an
Like
answer.
a horizontal reading of the scriptures would show you that with the gestalt of the Bible's message when it comes to relationships, women are supposed to be obedient to their husbands. The man was created first, and the woman was created for the man. That's the actual collective message throughout the New Testament, and also referencing the Old Testament. And I respectfully put it that anytime people try to say it is something else that sounds more egalitarian, what they're doing is they're trying to retroactively manipulate what the scriptures are in order to conform to a more modern sense of how relationships should be. But yeah, I mean, like without getting too caught up on what the Bible says or doesn't say, the when it comes to relationships in principle, the thing to keep in mind is we have to be able to question the traditions of where we have to be able to question our traditions about who does what in a relationship, because a lot of times these things are really just arbitrary or based upon who had power in a particular past context, and the tradition got passed down to us. Because the thing that the primary message that I tried to always have as my main thrust is that relationships should be defined upon the principles and the dynamics and ethics of relationships should be defined upon who can get the job done when it comes to a particular thing. And obviously, relationship, husband and wife, man and woman are a team. So who can, you know, if you are a team member with anybody else, so say with a friend of yours that's the same sex, and you're partners in a particular enterprise, would you just presume that one should be the leader in all things all the time just because? I don't think anybody reasonable would think that. They would defer to each other's expertise and defer to each other's strengths. for the collective goal of whatever the mission was. And in a family, in a relationship, the mission is to raise a successful family and continue the community. So I know it's short time, so.
No, you're fine. I allowed your time ran out, but I allowed because I think you're doing something that I wouldn't, not anymore, but I appreciate that. Yeah, go ahead, confidence with love. Thank you, Impossible. Thank you so much. The chat loves you, obviously. You're muted, confidence with love.
Hey, it's so good to see you back, Themis.
You
Hi,
too. I'm happy
everyone.
to be back.
You know, the question as to does the Bible get behind men being the head, that the Bible promotes patriarchy, is a definite yes. I am not a Christian, though I was raised that way, and I do have a degree in theology. Basically, because Black women, and that's generally who I work with the most, 83% of them in the U.S. are Christians, right? And so you have to be able to speak in the language that the person speaks. But yes, there's all types of books in the Bible that definitely say, the man's in the leadership. The Bible has it so that Adam was created first, all of those things. But I would submit to a deeper look at, let's say, Genesis. True, as far as the Bible is concerned, Adam was created first. God did say to him, do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Got a lot of problems with that, but whatever. He did not say that to Eve. And though Eve knew about it, I'm going to assume she knew about it from Adam. However, it's weird to me that we would curse a woman and women throughout history for simply seeking knowledge. That's what she was doing. And it's weird that he was supposed to be over the beasts of the field and things like that, but it was the woman who could speak to the animals. So I agree with the point. I know you were going to talk about Lilith a little bit, but I agree with the point that she was actually the first incarnation. And I do believe, based on the things I read, that she was actually the one who ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The other thing that I see is a lot of times Christians will go, delete the Old Testament unless they want to pick from it. And they'll go, oh, no, it's all about the New Testament. Far as I know, Paul wasn't married, but he was given a whole bunch of marriage advice. So that little him writing to the Ephesians church, and him telling what women's place should be, or men's, I guess he could tell men, but you can't tell a sister where she's supposed to be, and whether she's led by whoever that is. And I have to say that I'm in agreement with the cat-eyed oracle, because I've studied the deeper mysteries. And if we look in Proverbs, if we really look at 8 and 9 in Proverbs, you will find the Black goddess there, except for Hebrews call her wisdom. And it says in there that she is the architect of creation, and that God delighted in her. So that's going back to some of the comments that was in the chat. But I agree with Ruslan from his point of view, right? As a Christian man, and that's the way that they think. But as a woman who is a matriarchal, chick, we all know I don't bend the knee. Only rings getting kissed is the ones on my fingers. So I've never understood how you can say that you think women are equal, but you take them out of being a deity. You tell them that they cannot even speak or pray to Jesus unless they come through you. And that came from after the Gospels. But if you guys ever really look at the Gospels, men decided that the disciples were going to be dudes. And all of them basically told Jesus, yeah, we don't know you. Never seen him, never heard of him, nothing. But the women were always there for him. And if you look at the way he only, to me, treated women, you'll see that his way was to actually ask for the wisdom of women, to really lean on them. His first miracle he did because a woman told him so. And he got on it. He respected his mama. He did what she told him. And he
I
didn't.
mean, this is going to be. I'm going to use the bell in a minute, and I'm going to go back to using the bell. But like, even in Catholicism, what is that echo? Can women be priests? No.
Nope. They cannot.
Like I don't understand. Anywho,
they can't be cardinals either. It can't be none of it.
Like, I mean, this is why, like, I can talk to Ruslan and I can talk to like other people because like we're not about to debate on like things that are obviously true. Like I'm not about to do that with you anymore. Like I'm not. I can explain it one or two times, but like at the third time I'm done. Like I can't do that. So like we can debate of whether or not patriarchy is good or bad or like what it should mean and should not mean, but like we're not going to pretend like it's not like all over the Bible and all over like literally every interpretation of the Bible that is credible. But I do respect your perspective on being a sort of a matriarch and you don't bend the knee.
And I hear a lot in the comment section, which I totally agree with. As a woman who had to do it all as a single mother and work 2 jobs as an RN and do what I did, drive myself to my own delivery to my second child, my daughter. Black women in this country have always been made to labor at the same pace or more than Black men. Whatever happened with white women, that doesn't have anything to do with what we are doing. So if you're going to say that you're about a patriarchy and that you believe in men making the money and doing this and that, then you have to recognize that in order for us to survive throughout slavery, Black women did what they had to do, and we're still doing what we have to do. And now, Black men, well, it's not just now, but Black men are asking us to, okay, so you're educated, so you this, so you that. So now that you got all that, submit to me. Quit tripping. No, quit tripping. So that's my story. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right.
Please come back. The panel is going to be closed now, so everyone who is up will get to speak, but the panel is closed. That men admitted, and everyone has to admit that men only have power because we give it to them. Submission is giving them power. If we have to give you power, does that not mean women rule on power can give authority? One who has power, who gives the authority. Thank you, Curry Up and Eat. Wait, why are people laughing at me? I don't understand. If I could go back in time, I'd tear the apple. Wait, I can't stand y'all. I don't know why y'all are laughing at me, but I find it very funny in the chat. Thank you, Curry Up and Eat. Zizi.
Hello.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing well. We hope we will meet on Sunday. For the moderators here, we're meeting on Sunday. We have a little bit of housekeeping to do, but that's it. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay. I do obviously agree that it's a patriarchy, but everything is like Impossible said, everything is reflected of its time. Like when we look at other literature, like Pride and Prejudice or something like, or Neil Hurston's book Eyes Are Watching God, you can see like historical context in it that was influencing the authors to write these things. And so you cannot just say this book is just like preserved in a vacuum, that it's not like safe from all the prejudice, misogyny, patriarchal things in it. Like even I think First Corinthians 14:34 through 35 said, the women should keep silent in the church, for they are not permitted to speak, but should be in submission, as the law also says. If there's anything they desire to learn, let them ask their husbands at home, for it is shameful for a woman to speak in the church. You're muted.
No, I'm glad you read that. Impossible is reading some of it too, and it's like people are like, you're rude. And it's like, do you all really want me to sit here and try to convince someone that the Bible is not patriarchal? Like, is that literally what y'all want me to waste my time doing? Like,
and like, even if you, because like the thing is that you said like he says set aside the Old Testament. The problem is about this is that preachers use the Old Testament in their sermons. They use it to influence the congregation in their messages. Like, I've literally sat in like church, and the whole time they only used the Old Testament. They didn't use the New Testament.
Yeah, I mean, women were being used as bargaining chip and given off, and like even in the Bible, the ownership of anything wasn't for women as a general matter. Like people were being cursed through the way.
Yeah.
Through the women, like men were being cursed through their women. Like we're not doing that. Come on.
And like even for example, like if you look at Judges chapter 4, there's specifically one of the judges is a woman who is Deborah. But like when they were supposed to fight some kind of army against who was oppressing the Israelites, the commander asked her to go with him. And basically, as a punishment for not believing in God and making a woman going to go with him in the army, they basically said that a woman will kill your enemy. Like the enemy that you're supposed to do, it will be handed to the woman. So it's a punishment that a woman had to do his own job.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't, like you can talk, the argument, like you said, it is a benevolent one. But even then, I would not even say it's benevolent. Because the woman can't say anything in public, like the First Corinthians says. You have to talk to your husband. He's your mediator. He's the one that's supposed to speak for you when you don't have a voice. So why is it benevolent that I have to ask a husband or a father at this point? Because like I'm not married technically. So are we really going to do this? Like I don't think it's benevolent at all. Like there's no argument for me. I mean, like, did women get better treatment under the Bible? Sure, the Bible has but it's still not okay.
Yep. And I think it's rude to come up here and try to waste my time. That's what I think is rude. Like, you haven't read the descriptors, you don't know definitions, but y'all are wrong. You know y'all are wrong for this. Y'all are wrong for this. And by y'all, I'm just talking about one person. Wait. He or she says something. The Bible is white man perverted version of holy scriptures.
Well, we follow it though.
Wait. Miss Manu, if you want, I know the panel is closed. Lydia is the last person I will add, but I will make an exception for you in the after show. I promise I will make an exception for you. Go ahead, Zizi.
I mean,
You don't have to go any further, but go ahead.
can I respond to that and then I'll leave if that's okay?
Yeah.
I think okay, but if this is if that premise is true, then we have adopted it. We have allowed it to control our lives, or not control our lives. That's bad wording, but like allow it to influence how we choose to move. So it doesn't. So basically, you're arguing that white people have always influenced us, but that makes sense because we are not the dominant culture. But
yeah,
how much you choose to allow them to influence you is your choice. So that's just me.
No, I appreciate that. No, it's not just you. That was great. Thank you. I actually need to do a live where I get you and Impossible on at the same time.
Honestly, I would love to talk to him. He's like, oh,
yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'll leave. Bye.
Bye. Similar energy. Go ahead, Chocolate Earth.
Hello again.
Oh yes, voice.
How y'all doing tonight? Okay, so here, this is a great conversation again. You got me. I jumped right in. The question was, is it patriarchal, right? That's the question. The Bible, yes. What I'm confused about is this, to all the things I've listened to, and respectfully, they're using the Bible to take our rights away. Did anybody miss that? I'm sorry. And we're told why these men are asking for submission is because, again, we say he. We say Jesus is a man. We say Lord. We don't say lady. And I love that men have decided to pick these particular parts in the Bible. But you know what? They never talk about community. They never talk about building something. These, if you want to use the Bible, fine. But these men had land and property. You want me to submit and you rent the Airbnb.
I mean, even even the man of God who came up here said, nope, submission comes at a cost.
When I heard that, my mouth just was open. My mother would have been so upset because it's we're still in 2022. We're in 2022 and we're still having this conversation. And I'm speaking to my men of color, and I'm going to say this. You need to talk to other men about submission, because if that's the case, you're submitting to a man as well. You're submitting to the Jesus that they have in the church, which is light skin. I don't know if it's black Jesus, but there's no difference where we're going with that. We're not using it to the point it's supposed to, because we cherry pick it. We cherry pick it. We have different denominations, and none of those things have added up to strengthening us as a community. So yeah, I'm gonna just go ahead, and I read the Bible too. I'm gonna go ahead and put it down, because if you're talking about the Lord, if you're talking about Jesus, if you're talking about God, it's always him, he. How is this possible? But we're okay with the fact that, so God impregnated a woman who was married to have Jesus.
Wait,
they was together.
They were together. I don't think.
Yeah, he had brothers and sisters, but they don't talk about that. All we get is that he was born, then he got, he had to leave here on that cross, what he went through, and then now it's Revelations and he coming back. So but it has nothing to do with us as a community trying to do better. And the last thing I'm going to say is, when we hear choose better, why can't we talk about them being better? I'm not taking responsibility for no grown men. Yay! I only have, that's my sister, I'm so sorry. But I have one young man that I'm trying to raise. That's my younger brother. Why can't we talk about them being better? then I don't have to choose better, because then every man is on the same page.
Yeah.
So that, with that being said, thank you. I'm
Thank you.
stepping
I love your
down.
voice, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I love your show. This is awesome. Bye.
All right, Sava, you have 2 minutes.
Oh, hi, Themis. Thank you for having me on. Can you hear me?
Perfectly.
All right. Thank you for having me on. I love this topic a lot. Very controversial topic because, people love their God and their Bible. But absolutely, the Bible does establish patriarchy. It's clear as day. I mean, we don't even have to go that far into the Bible. It's Genesis, even in heaven. God, we all assume that God is omniscient, right? Omniscient, omnipresent, and all-knowing. Oh, I already said omniscient.
Omnipotent,
Omnipotent, yeah. All-powerful, all-knowing, and present everywhere at once. But somehow, the most powerful being in existence created the absolute leader, supreme leader. He created angels that rebelled against him, and he could anticipate. God establishes the way patriarchs are running the world right now. The Bible, God is the father, but he leaves his children that he just created to their own devices. He puts the fruit, the tree of good and evil in the middle of the garden, but he tells them, oh, don't eat from the tree of good and evil. And Adam and Eve did not know any better, but somehow you're going to blame your children from eating from a tree that you put right in the middle of the garden, and also you send the devil that you created into the garden.
I feel like you're arguing about the rightness or wrongness of the Bible, and
No, I'm not arguing. I'm interpreting from the literal perspective, because there's multiple ways of interpreting the Bible, but the leadership of God, which establishes the patriarchy of the world that people refer to, has to be questioned, because the entity, I don't believe that the entity that claims to be God in the Bible is the most absolute and perfect and most powerful entity in existence, because obviously the actions prove that it's not the case. A God that regrets creating humans, that has to send a flood, it doesn't make sense. So, God, it wasn't let there be light, it was let there be dust. And we I'm just saying, I'm sorry, the Christians in the chat, I'm sorry. God said, let there be dust. This is the example we're gonna follow. And I wish I had more time to go into like the psychology of the Bible, but it's okay. Next time, hopefully.
There will not be a next time. You did not just say let there be dust. Good night.
Good night, Themis.
Menu. Well, she left. Concern. Go ahead.
Hey,
wait, before you go, let me read this. 2 minutes each. What I got, ladies, submit in your 20s and you two could potentially end up happy, even if that is not what the community has been doing. Go ahead. Wait, I only follow the Old Testament, but I will say I don't think most men think God has genitals. Saying he or him is just established God as a superior to us. I think intrinsic in the language of he and him is male superiority, but that can be argued. I don't know who is arguing against that, but like even in our language, right? Like, period. Go ahead, Concerned.
So I'm going to say something up front. I'm not going to bury the lead. I think the Bible establishes the baselines that were needed for racism, because because in calling anyone a chosen people.
Let me pause all the time, because y'all are not going to have me acting a fool on Beyonce's internet. We're not doing that tonight, because Sava came on and decided to just drag everyone, and now Concern comes on dragging. I don't know if I said thank you to Bigger Picture, but I do mean to say thank you. are concerned, tread lightly in your 1.5 minutes. I'm gonna put it
One
back
and
up
a
there.
half. You took up some of 1.5 laughing at me. I didn't say. I was trying to be
I just said
forthcoming, right?
I'm gonna
I'm not.
put it back. I'm gonna put it back at 2. Go ahead.
And the reason why is because God said that He has a chosen people. He decided that there were supreme people. He put prejudice into the world, and which is one of the many reasons why I don't think we need the Bible. I think that when we think about, because God is self-evident. I believe that God is real. God is self-evident. God is worth exploring and knowing and becoming close to. I don't think that personally, and in my life, I don't believe that it is to say that you reject the idea of the Bible does not mean you reject the relationship with God or the validity of a Christ. What I will say is that kind of, so I'll leave that there because I don't have
I'm
2
not
minutes.
going to allow y'all to drag my Bible and my Jesus, but continue.
Okay, I'll stop right there because the idea of it to me is that when you think about what it has netted to us, like the outcomes, is that these men will go back to this book that has tons of things that are unsavory. And these are not the only reasons I have, but the idea of patriarchy specifically, like a lot of the dusty logic comes from these ideas. The idea that a woman's worth is her ability to be a good helpmate to a man comes from that idea that the woman was made for the man. And so men, in a lot of the ways that men feel entitled to a woman's body, her time, her future, has come from these ideas. They feel as though, and we fight against often in your space, that what about the fact that she would want to choose differently or want to do differently? What if she says no? If we follow the logical extremes of these books and we don't sugarcoat it, we don't make it nice, men have an entitlement to a wife and to a woman's body. And so I think that there are just other reasons where I think that these books, and I'll incriminate many other ones, these books are not helpful, and we can imagine we can reimagine our relationships individually with God without needing them, I believe.
Now y'all deconstructing Christianity, period. All right. You and I disagree.
That's fine. We can do that. That's fine.
My God is a good, benevolent God. He's also one that's going to wage war. So,
and I mean, God is good and benevolent. We could be talking about the same good, benevolent God. What I'm trying to say specifically is that I do not trust the accounts of these people to be to not be manipulative. That's it.
Period.
All
Lydia.
right, good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Hello?
Wait, someone said, love that for you. Y'all are not allowed. Y'all are not allowed to drag me any further in this chat. Y'all are not allowed to drag me any further in this chat. I can hear you, Lydia. Go ahead.
Hi. I just wanted to say that I do agree that there is patriarchy in the Bible. And so I don't think that's something that Christians should be afraid of or deny. And to be honest, I wasn't here the whole time, so I got here just when Ruslan left, so I'm not sure exactly what he was talking about.
He did agree that it's patriarchal.
Okay. And so as I was watching the video and I was looking at the comments, I kind of just wanted to like address some things. One of the comments was talking about why should we listen to Paul, like kind of questioning his credibility, and why wasn't he married? And I'm I'm gonna like explain it from the Bible. It's
You have
Paul
one
was
more minute to explain.
okay.
Sorry.
Paul was chosen by Jesus, like on his journey to Damascus. Jesus called and spoke to Paul and basically told him, what are you doing? Why are you going after my people? Because at that time, Paul was, killing Christians and imprisoning them. And after he had his encounter with Jesus, and he spent some time alone, he changed his life around. And so he spent years being being with the Holy Spirit. And if anyone who's a Christian knows that the Holy Spirit is a teacher, a helper, a counselor. And I think one of the reasons why there's so many Christians who don't disagreements is because they don't seek the Holy Spirit, who's supposed to teach us as the Bible. We're not, and everything that people say, like pastors or preachers, priests, we're supposed to go back to the Bible and make sure that it aligns with the Word of God. And there's an example of that in the book of Acts, called the Berea Church, where the people would, listen to the teachers in the synagogues, and then they would go back home and make sure it lined up with the Bible. And so I just wanted to say that. And the reason why Paul wasn't married was because he was so devoted to God. The Bible states not everyone has to be married. God created marriage. Marriage is a good thing, but not everyone has to be married. And one of those people was Paul. And he was giving instructions on marriage because he was a leader. So he's going to he was instructing the people according to what God wanted. So,
Wait, pause 1 second.
Yeah.
Did y'all just say apology? Look, y'all can be mad all you want in this chat, all you want. Y'all are not going to separate me from my Christianity. I am a la carte Christian, and I fully embrace it. Go ahead. Sorry.
Another thing that I wanted to mention was the part about women not speaking in the church. That was a letter that Paul wrote to the Corinthian church. And the women there were, how do you say, because they were being louder than the men, if I can word it like that. So Paul was, sorry, not Paul. Yes, Paul. Paul and Timothy both wrote about that. And he was just saying, like, you know, don't go
chasing waterfalls.
He was just not telling them to do that. I think that was, I'm just going to leave it at that. I think they.
Wait, you're saying he was only telling women not to be loud or interrupt the men by saying women should not preach?
Yes.
Period. I am Christians with you. I am Christian with you, but I won't even accept that. But yeah, no, thank you so much. We agree on some things. We should come back and you and I can have a discussion. I'm also hurrying everyone because I have a night of debauchery ahead of me. I just closed a tough deal and we're about to go out. But yeah, thank you, Lydia. Brittany. Brittany. You're muted. I see Luke in the back, so I'll add you. Menu, you are not connecting. So if you connect, I'll add you in the after show that's about to start now. Brittany? Okay. Thank you, Brittany. All right. So I'm about to add Paul. Oh, hey, Paul. Oh, You went off screen. I thought you were on screen, Paul. Um, you're muted. All right, I'll talk to you in the after show. If I must submit to you, then you must submit to team supremacy, and you cannot complain the way you expect me to not complain. Thank you. Curry Up and Eat said submission is having access to your hobby account to super chat. Themis. I've submitted. Period. Wait. Wait. Not Curry Up and Eat using her man's money to send to me. This is not funny, but it is funny. Let me go into this after show because y'all. All right, Luke.
Are we still on the same title here? Or are we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So patriarchy, right? So basically, we're talking about the system of a government, which is the father is the eldest and the male, and it gives man precedent and dominion over the earth. Is that what we're speaking on?
Yep.
Okay. So I hear a lot of people talk about they believe in the Bible, they believe in the Old Testament, right? So in the Old Testament, there's a lot of precedent for, and you can look at this in all kinds of different Bibles, from like the New American Standard, the King James Version, NASB. There's like 15, maybe 17 different, and they're all saying the same thing, basically paraphrased into like the King James. I like it the best. But it says, so God created man in his own image. All right. Let's just stop it right there. In his, it's singular and it's a pronoun and it's a male. All right. So using English, because that's what we're using, it was interpreted into English. We have to use English rules, and I think it's very important for us to understand what his and his image was. So it was what he created to be the dominant species, and he gave him dominion over all mankind, including the garden. And the freedom, I heard somebody else bring up like the tree of life, right? So the tree of the knowledge of good and evil was it's to give us the choice whether we're going to listen or not, because that stops us from being a stringless puppet. If we have all good and no evil, because God later on, I think it's in Ephesians in the New Testament, and somewhere in the middle of the Old Testament where he actually said he created good and evil, okay? Because there's no way we can have freedom if we don't have a balance of good and evil. You've got to have good in order to have evil. You can't have evil without good. So, you understand where I'm coming from there as far as the balance goes?
Yep.
So let's just go with how we submission. The word submit. A lot of people really don't know what that word really means. They think they know what it means, but to submit is to actually to bring yourself down, to unsub. So you're literally coming down and you're putting yourself under somebody that you disagree with. That means submission. That is in full submission there. So that is what man did with God when he chose to listen to, I like to call it the good, the bad, the ugly. Okay. Because 2/3 of us is evil. And then you got 1/3 of us is good. So we got the flesh, we got the spirit man, and we got the ugly. Okay. So that's how I call it. And when we're looking at that, our nature, we already have 2/3 of our nature defying God. So when God put that balance there, he did give us a choice, and God gave man dominion over the earth doing so. That's why the difference between estrogen and testosterone is a man on a lot of people they don't like the truth, and the truth is definitely not it's not how would I put it? It's not famous at all. People don't really like the truth. You know, a lot of people like to stay into the denial factor. But
yes, and they will define everything into
yes,
what they want it to be as opposed to what it actually is.
very good. And here's what gets me about even the atheists. Even everybody that says they don't believe in Jesus, they don't
Drag
believe
them
this, they don't
too.
believe that. And I don't care. Hey, if you want to identify or whatever, go ahead. If you want to worship an ant crawling up a stick, by all means, that's your freedom. God gave it to you. So, but my point is that if you look at what's today's date, all right, let's look at today's the 7th month, the 15th day of 2022. So listen, it's been 2022 years, 15 let's see 15 days, 7 months, 10 hours and 38 minutes since Jesus was born. Most people don't get it. They don't get it at all. And they're not going to get it, but they keep their time by them. Isn't that crazy? A carpenter's son that they don't believe in, and not just us, not just Europe, not just the Middle East, but the whole world keeps their time by a carpenter's son. Just want to remind y'all. Hey, I enjoy your show. Y'all have a good night.
No, I appreciate. I mean, I don't disagree with you. I wish we were honestly. I wish we were more honest. And when we dissect things, we do it from the perspective where we are wrong, and we define things in the worst case scenario for us. By the way, that was a mistake on the screen. So I think that if we did that, we would be. I think we could be more like thoughtful in our approach because everyone is out here defining submission this way and that way. Everyone is like, oh, the Bible is not patriarchal. Like, no, I'm not about to do that with you. But thank you.
Okay, cool.
Go ahead, Obi.
Hello, Themis. Hello, everyone.
Wait, before you go, Themis, it was not. No, I don't lie. I was actually looking at something and I clicked it by mistake. Like, I promise that was by mistake.
Hey, I'm a content maker, man. I got a channel too. So, I mean, some things do happen. So, hey, it'll be a mystery. We'll see. I'll judge that by your demeanor and the things that I see in the future. But right now, I'll give you the benefit of a doubt.
Oh, no. I am petty. I am very much petty, but I don't hide my pettiness. Like, if I'm called out on it, I'm going to own it. But yeah, you can judge it in the later, but I promise, like, I'm not. If I did that intentionally, I would have told you, like, yeah, did that intentionally. Obi, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Hello, Themis. Everybody seems to be defining submission to avoid the elephant in the room, which means that submission means authority, a man's authority over a woman. That's how the Bible means it. That's how it describes it. There's no ambiguity to it. But because we all understand that there's something fundamentally unfair with that, or unjust, or not right with that, that is why everybody's twisting themselves into a pretzel to describe it differently. I grew up in church like all my life, and I went as a younger person, the church was teaching man over woman. But when feminism started growing and women started working and getting jobs and becoming the breadwinners and things like that, I started hearing pastors change the message of submission to be this kind of respect and agreement. I was like, wait, it wasn't that way 5 years ago. So, like, I think people are evolving to understand, like, women are having more power and saying, no, you're not going to be my Lord and Master. I'm not doing that anymore. So people are now trying to change the definition of submission to suit so it doesn't seem so unfair. That's why when you push and say, so are you saying, it's clear, like, men wrote the Bible, period, all throughout all of it. They wrote the Bible and everything was written. Like, we know that culturally for the past few thousand years, the system of this world has been that might is right. So because men are more powerful, they took dominion over women and women had to submit. So that's simply what it is, and we still want it to be that way. Although the society we've built, it's not exactly that way. It's not conducive for how we used to be, for how
Yep.
things used to be thousands, some hundreds of years ago. The society right now, like, men are not. So one of these dudes told me men built the world. I was like, you haven't built anything in your life, so why are you taking credit for something somebody else built? So a random woman should submit her autonomy to you just because you were born in this as the same gender as the people that built the world when you haven't built anything. Like, we need more than that. So like this environment doesn't suit the system that we've been built on for thousands of years. The economy, women can work right now, women have their own power, so men are struggling to keep that. We're still biologically the men of 2,000 years ago, so we still want that control. We still want that woman to submit to us. It's still a natural craving we have, and like, we just should come out and say it. I think there's a lot of women that want to operate in that dynamic. I found out that some women want to just submit and let the man make all the decisions. I've seen that dynamic work successfully for some people. And I've seen egalitarian systems work for other people too, where they work together, they make decisions together, they argue things out, and it works successfully. So I think there are different paradigms that can work for every person. And I've seen a system where I have one of my sister. I have a sister of mine that's married to like a really gentle guy. She makes all the decisions. He doesn't mind that. They have a successful family and a beautiful relationship. But like, my family is not like that. Like, I'm wired different, and I have a different arrangement that's working for me, and that's working for all the other kind of people. So like, this whole blanket submission, man must be absolute, regardless of the man you are, regardless of your station, your status, your skill, your earning income. Like, that's outdated. That's why we're struggling with it.
Yep. Thank you, Obi. I don't have anything to add to that. I'm sure other people, I saw people disagreeing and a lot of people agreeing. Y'all will get your chance next time to debate. I actually might have a live on Sunday night. Don't hold me to that. But thank you. Paris.
Hey, Themis, I had to come back. I have a few things.
You have 2 minutes.
Okay, I'll talk fast. Okay, so I think that what the problem with this whole situation is, of course, the Bible is patriarchal. Most organized religions are, and it's on purpose. I feel like people don't realize, like Obi was saying, it is created as a dominance thing over women. And you don't just get to be a leader because you have a penis. I don't believe in that. And if you feel like you're innately more wonderful than a woman because you have a penis, okay, cool. You can't birth a child though. So what are we talking about? The word he comes from she, the word men comes from woman. So why are we not on even playing field? I believe that women are superior. That's just
Wait,
that.
you think the word man comes from woman?
Oh yes. Man, the
All
word
right.
man comes out of woman, the
All
word he
right.
comes out of she. So
All
I feel
right.
like, and even still, that you come from us. So what are we talking about? And what
I
I also,
mean, no, we do come from you, but I feel like that's not how the word would work. I
well,
feel like that's not how the word would work in terms of what comes first, at least biblically.
okay. Well, I also want to add that number one, the exploitiveness of patriarchy, you can see all throughout Christianity as well, because of the fact that some of the worst exploitive things that happen to women come out of religious institutions. Children are getting molested, women are getting RAPE'd, they're getting beat and told to just submit and this and that. There's tons of negative qualities out of men that comes with dominance that breed and thrive in patriarchal systems as well as religion. It makes no excuse for it. It doesn't even try to combat it. It just goes along with it. Catholic Church, and the person just up here, the Catholic Church literally will just push it to the side, push it down, and don't say it. And also, I feel like if patriarchy and submission work so great, remember, Black women were slaves just like the men. We always worked. White women were the ones sitting at home drinking tea. but then they still revolted and became feminists and wanted rights. So if it's so great, we were already working. She was trying to work. She wanted a credit card. She wanted to vote and things like that. So why wasn't, if things were in order, quote unquote, why wasn't she just rested in her feminine and happy? People were unaliving their men when they couldn't have rights and men were treating them bad and stuff. And I this might be the reason why I don't have kids again. If I had a daughter, she's going to be raised like Colombiana. I'm not going to let y'all sons treat her crazy and beat her. Your children will be unalived. Your men ain't going to be here. I'm not going to allow my nieces and things like that to be exploited and disrespected and abused. Like, that's not what women are used for.
Period. Same. Me, not me. I want to say take us home, but I don't want to, because the reason I don't want to is because you're going to say some foolishness about dragging Christian in the Bible, and I'm not going to actually. Let's see if I have self-control.
I know, and I feel bad because actually the gentleman that I wanted to respond to has left. So, and if you did want to dedicate another time to really specifically get into a little bit more of just theological discussions, not necessarily rooted in the relationship between men and women. I find this conversation very, very stimulating, and lots of good points have been made. But, so I did have a huge list, but I'm just going to go through actually the last point, which was to that other gentleman's point. When
before you go into the last point, I will let you take us home. I will say before you do, though, and my closing remarks, and then you take us home, and I cannot speak after you, is this is a learning experience for me. When it comes to the Bible, like generally, I don't debate with people on it. I try to be a student because it's very difficult for me to engage with people who I think are, like, I am Christian, and I think I am delusional when it comes to Christianity. Like, it feels like, no, like I'm being like completely honest. And you can call me a la carte Christian, and I would say period. But the reality is that's what in my mind faith is. So like, I could be wrong, and that's fine. I don't argue with anyone about Christianity because you're not about to change my beliefs.
Absolutely.
But I know when I am being delusional, essentially. Go ahead, take us home.
Yeah, and full disclosure for me, I'm not a Christian, but I was raised sort of in a Baptist-y type. My grandfather was actually a Baptist preacher, and so I was raised on the King James 1611 Bible, and so questions about the Bible and things in the Bible, were not necessarily welcome to my family. And so I'm not necessarily even here to drag. It's just the questions that, as a young person that we're not allowed to be asked. It's nice that other people are also discussing them. So I just find it as a place of enlightenment where these things can even be discussed and the door is open and people have open minds and really good opinions. So that's kind of, where I'm coming from in the interest. So the last part that he talked about, with the tree and the knowledge of good and evil. And it's really interesting to me how folks dissect that, because he's saying that the tree was placed in there so that we would have, this sort of free will, so that we could decide if we wanted, to eat of the fruit of the knowledge and so forth and so on. But my contention is, if you're granting, true autonomy, to an entity, or being, then there was no freedom from consequences. And I think that it would be really interesting to sort of discuss and hear other folks' ideas for me about, if we were really to be free, why were there then consequences and, and punishments for making a certain choice? Because there could be a choice without a consequence. Folks could be allowed to be good in the world and do good, and folks could be allowed to be evil in the world and do evil. And those could coexist. There did not have to be an ultimate like heaven or hell. And so that's just kind of something where I push back a little bit, because I say, is it really that, we had this free will and this free choice when there is still guidance, when there is still a direction that we are encouraged to go. That was all. That was just, I just wanted to hear his thoughts about that.
I really want to talk, but I can't.
You can.
So I made a promise. I won't. Ain't no way
thank
you're
you.
gonna convince me that hell is not real. Hell has been embedded in, not you, not me. Hell has been embedded in my life. I failed at it. So hell has been embedded in me in Jamaica, and so I'm very afraid of hell. It is what it is. So,
I know. And then it's like, well, I thought you were supposed to have free will. So are we allowed to have free will or kind of not? Because if you exercise your free will in one direction, you're punished. It's kind of like a puppy. You let it in the house. You say, I'm just going to give it free reign. But then when it chews the carpet, I'm going to roll up a newspaper and whack him on the nose, So to use a very archaic type of an example. So I would like someone to, expound on why there is that sort of secondary, level of punishment.
Stick a pin, bring that up back, because I think you're actually wrong in that comparison about the pain of discipline versus, like, it shows up in that way. Anyway, I'm going to end it here. Thank y'all. My friends and coworkers are going to kill me for being like 2 hours late.
Famous.
Good night.
Have a good one.
Oh, wait, look for me this weekend. I don't know what time. Whenever I have the free time, we will go in, but I'm going to be working really, really hard this weekend. Bye.